I am Belsa's bishop. And I'm one of the members organizing this seminar. We would like to welcome you to the third day of this session of this series of virtual sessions on literature to develop language skills. Before moving on to our first distinguished guest, we would like to go over a couple of brief logistics with you. First, to allow yourself to be present in this space, we would like you to put your cell phones in silent, and so that would help you to be a little bit more focused on your learning and growth. We encourage you to ask questions or make comments at the end of each presentation, or if you prefer, you can always post comments during the presentation in the chat box. We would like also to invite you to turn on your cameras, especially when participating in the seminar, to feel a little bit closer to the speaker as well as people attending the meeting. And finally, the last piece of logistics would be to keep your mic off to prevent any interruptions during the presentations. Professor Marisol, do you have any additional comments or announcements to make?
Well, just that. I think you've said everything. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to see you here today. This is our third day of seminar. Wow. Halfway.
Exactly.
Halfway.
Halfway there.
Yeah,
right.
We have learned so much. And well, get your pen and paper and everything you need ready, because we're going to learn a whole bunch more today. God bless you all. Thank you for being here.
Amen. Thank you, Marisol, Professor Marisol, for the short words of encouragement. With that, it is my pleasure to turn the stage to Professor Glorita Riquelme. She has been teaching at the University of Panama since 2003. She holds a bachelor's degree in English, a degree in high school education, a master's degree in linguistics, and a master's degree in comparative literature. The topic of her presentation is part one. This is part one of two. And the topic is activities and materials for the development of literature courses and other English classes. Glorita, with you, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good morning, professors. It's a pleasure for me to be here, sharing with all of you. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we do.
Awesome. Very good. Well, yeah, it's a pleasure for me to be here with all of you today. And I would like to thank you for your presence and also thank the committee for organizing this magnificent event that we've been waiting for a long time. So I think I don't have the housing. Could I become the host?
You do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, let me see. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Let me see. And put maybe this one over there. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So as Professor Bishop said, this is the first part of a section of materials and activities, basically activities and materials that we're going to be, I'm going to be explaining. And these activities I have like worked with these activities in the courses, and there are some activities that I would like to do. And so I would like to share them with you. The objectives, we can say that are to know about activities and materials that can be used to develop and enrich our 5 literature courses, as well as other courses, and to share these activities and materials with professors that teach literature courses in the city and also in other provinces. Then it is interesting to know that at the English department, we have 5 literature courses. We have children's literature, that is the first one taught in second year during the first semester. And also during the first semester, we teach contemporary comparative literature. We just finished those courses. And now we are going to start with the short story the second semester. And also we're going to be teaching American literature and Shakespeare and other British authors. So these are the courses that are taught at the English department related to literature. And let me see if I can move this a little bit. Maybe put it over here. So this first course that I'm going to be talking about is children's literature, also called English 260. And I just try to put there some information about that we can find in the program, which says that the justification is related to what students are going to be able to do, right? Through reading and analyzing stories for children, students become familiar with different literary genres that will allow them to increase their vocabulary and use literary elements. The course content deals with nursery rhymes, poetry, fables. We have myths and legends. We have folk tales, fairy tales. We have drama for children. And at the end, we have the novel. So these are aspects, like the parts of the content that we teach in this course. And I would like to share with you some of the activities that I do in this class, and some variations, right? How we can change them, because there are things that we discover through the passage of time that we can do better, or we can eliminate, or we can incorporate. So I'll be talking about activities such as making a lap book, making a book cover, making a picture book or a picture storybook, nursery rhymes, speech demonstration, puppet theater, writing a haiku, creating a haiku mural, creating a video poem, readers theater, role play, and then a positive message board at the end. So let's begin with the first one, that is making or creating a lap book. The objective of this activity is to create a logbook to explain literary elements or keep handouts. People use it in different ways, but basically is to have students keep information stored there so they can remember it easily. The materials, well, they use a folder, they can use paper, markers, stickers, pictures, anything they want. It's up to their own judgment and creativity. And the benefit that this activity has is that they can use this lab book to organize ideas and concepts, and also to include or put there just their materials. And they call it lab book because it's big enough to fit on our lap, and then we can open it and we can look what is inside. So as you can see the picture, it's basically a folder. Right, I learned this activity in a seminar that we took at the university, and I liked it a lot, and I decided to use it in this class. And so basically, yeah, this is a normal folder, right? 8.5 by 11, as you can see here. And then what they do is they fold it in this way, as you can see in the picture. So they fold it like this. Normally it's like this, but they fold it like this, right? And so you can see it right over there, how they have it, yes? And opened, it would look like this. So here you have it. Over here, you can, when they open it, they can have a lot of information that we use in this course, in this class. For example, if they are studying fables that Professor Orlando explained yesterday, they can write information about the characteristics, the origins, and the idea is that they don't forget this information and they have it handy. So there you have it. They have about the author, and they just pull it and they can see all information about the author. The plot over here, they just open it and they can see information about the plot. And here, favorite part, a cast of characters, they open it and then they can see all the information about major characters, minor characters, and so on. And over here too, this is just like the front cover, and then they open it and they can see information related to it, like the lesson that they learned, the setting, right? They open it, and also conflicts right over here. And some people use it only to store information, like they just put different layers, and they can put the handouts that the professors provide. That would be like our university students. But then children, in a class of children, we would tell them to do this, like the information that we provide in class, that they could like store the information in this way with different concepts. Let's see. So I did this activity before the pandemic, and at the end, I would tell the students that I would collect all of them and I would do like a lab book exhibit outside. I put a table outside and I put all the lab books over there. So all the students of the English department could take a look at them from 8 to 12. And then at the end, at 12, we collected all of them and everybody took their lab books. So it didn't remain outside. And then with the being afraid that people could take them and they wanted to have their own lab books. So then I like to teach this because if our students decide to become teachers in the future, then they can use this activity with their own children in their class. So moving on, the second activity is making a book cover, because in this class we teach about, give me just a second to put this a little bit here. Yeah, we teach about short story, well, I'm sorry, like, yeah, picture books and picture story books. So we can tell them at the very beginning that they can create a book cover. And so the objective is to design a book cover that enhances their creativity and enthusiasm for writing. The materials, they can use anything they want. They can use cardboard, paper, markers, dry ice, pictures, you name it. And the benefit is that students can use it to practice the language and to get inspiration to write a book someday. Also, they can do this activity if they become teachers in the future. And then the procedure is pretty easy. It's just explaining to students that it's not the book inside. The inside of the book is just the cover. So they're going to design and create their book cover, also the spine and the back cover. You decide if you would like them to do this by hand, or if you would like them to print it and then, stick it over there. Also, you can create a rubric in which you tell them what exactly you are going to grade and even rate at the end. Oops, I can't see the next one because it's white. Okay, let me see if I touch this part. Okay, here. Okay, so here we have like the elements that we can ask them to develop. Like, for example, the book cover elements, we can tell them, okay, you're going to include your title and a subtitle as well. And we can tell them to include a picture of the story that they are going to present or write about, but it's just the cover for now. And then the author's name. It would be very interesting to see their names on the front of the book. And then at the end, or on the back cover, they will write a blurb, which is like a summary of what the book is about. And they have to write information about the characters, about the setting, the conflict, not too long, something short like a paragraph. And on the back, they can also write testimonials or reviews of other people or authors that would like to say something about their books to motivate people to buy them. And at the end, and this part is very interesting, you tell them that they have to write the author's biography. So it could be done in couples if you want to. If that's the case, then they will put both pictures, little pictures of their faces over here, and a short paragraph with their biography, where they were born, if they're university students, and so on. What year they are studying. And then they would put both pictures over here if they are two, if they're working in couples, or just one if it's just an individual work. And then you can also tell them that here they can, in the middle or the spine, they can write the name of the book, the title of the book, the author's name, and the editorial house or something that they would like to invent or create. So this would be activity number 2. But going a little bit deeper and further, we can tell them to also write a picture book or a picture storybook, which would be what is inside the cover of the book that they created. Actually, you can begin with this, or you just can do the previous one, right? But in a picture book or a picture storybook. Basically, we teach also this information in this course. A picture book is a book that is for young children, for toddlers that they don't know how to read. And basically the book is made of big pictures and very few words, if any, right? For example, this one over here where you can see the hands and you can see the drawing, huge drawing, and it just says hello. And some noises, right? Like onomatopoeia, I think it says wall or something like that. I cannot see it here. So, and then the picture storybook is a book for older children that know how to read. And then it has pictures, yes, but it also has the story written so they can read it, which is different from the picture book because the parents are the ones that read the story for the children. So they can decide, or you as a professor can decide if you would like them to create a picture book, or if you would like them, if you would like them to create a picture storybook. So the objective is to write stories, right? Picture books or picture storybooks that enrich students' creativity and enthusiasm for writing. The materials, they can use anything. They can use cardboard, paper, markers, pictures. Again, you decide if you would like them to do this handwritten or if you would like them to type it. The benefit is that students can practice the language, they get inspiration to write a story of or their own book in the future. They can do this activity alone, or they can work in couples. I remember when I did this before the pandemic, I told them to do it in couples. And I told them to begin writing the story in class so I could see where they were going. And then next class, they were supposed to work at home and bring more about the plot so I could read it. And the idea is not to have them plagiarize information from internet. And so even so, at the end, we have, when the stories are ready, we have to check and compare and see if they are not taken from internet. And we tell them about plagiarism since the very beginning, and they know that they can get an F if they do so. But still some do, and we have to be very careful with them. So that's why it's important to have or to use plagiarism checkers online or detectors, right? So we can also tell them to include on the cover the medals, right? Because we also teach them in this class that there are awards that the best books receive. For example, the Caldecott Medal, which is given to the best illustration, right? These awards are given by the American Library Association, and the color gold represents the first place. And then they have honor places that are in silver, maybe 2 or 3. And then we have the Newbery Medal that is for the best content, like the best story. And so we can tell them to, I thought I had one here, but I don't. We can tell them that they can also include the medals, right, over there. And so that's the procedure at the end when it is ready, when we have graded it and made sure that it's not plagiarized or anything. We tell the students to read the stories in front of the class, to show the books and the cover, the inside. And again, we can make a book exhibit outside for all the students of the English department to look at it, and also the professors as well. Just one morning from 8 to 12, and then at 12, we collect all the books again. And then we give them a grade for that. Oops, I'm sorry. Oops, I'm sorry. Wait. Okay, now let me see, let me go back. Okay, so I was here. Now the next activity is literature activity number 4, and this one is about nursery rhymes. Basically, we teach also nursery rhymes in this course. Nursery rhymes are basically songs or for children that these songs have been passed from generation to generation. They are very common in English-speaking countries and even in our countries. They're very old, and however, many people don't know the origins of these nursery rhymes. So it's very important to talk about the origin in class. And the objective is to know the history and origins behind nursery rhymes and the materials. Well, I use this book about nursery rhymes. It is called The Secret History of Nursery Rhymes by Linda Alkin. And I tell students about the different nursery rhymes that we can find here. I also show them a video with nursery rhymes for them to know how they sound and for them to remember them, because I'm pretty sure that many of them have heard Hickory Hickory Dock or Humpty Dumpty or Jack and Jill or London Bridge is Falling Down. And so maybe they don't remember, but when they hear or watch the videos, they go like, oh, yes, I remember. And so I tell them, well, the benefit of this activity is that students can practice the English language, they learn about the history of these rhymes, and they can teach them in the future if they become teachers, right? And so what I do is I tell them to pick a classmate and work in couples. And then from here, I usually like them to select from here, because here we have many different nursery rhymes. We have like 50. And so I tell them to choose from here a one that they like, and then I write it down. And I write it down so that they don't repeat. And basically, they are like this. For example, Baba Black Sheep. We have it here. Oops, I think you cannot see it. Yeah, we have it here. And then here we have part of the origins and history. So basically, there are two students. They divide this information into one student is going to talk about this first part. The other student is going to talk about this other part. And they prepare at home. I give them the guidelines that I expect for this. What I'm going to be grading through a rubric that I show them, and I give them a date so that they can get ready. When they are ready, they come both. One student begins with the origin, with the introduction, the origins and history, and the other student finishes with the other part. And then at the end, they have to sing the song for the class. I tell them to bring instrumental background music, not with people singing, just instrumental, so we listen to them. And a variation, I also tell them that if there is any student that plays an instrument, like the guitar, or piano, or anything, they can bring the instrument and they can play in class while they sing the nursery rhymes. And they do this. Last semester, I had a student who brought his guitar and they sang, and it was beautiful. Sadly, I couldn't take any video because it was like unexpected, but it was really beautiful. And so they did, they enjoyed it. And it's a short activity that it doesn't imply too much, right? It's a short activity for them to start. And so I give them at the end an evaluation. Um, and yeah, they feel pretty good about it because they can see what the other classmates come up with. So it's very interesting. Then the next activity, and I like this one a lot, is activity number 5, puppet theater using fables and stories. So as Professor Orlando Guerrero explained yesterday, the usage of fables, the characteristics and the origins. When we are explaining fables or short tales, after the explanation, then we can tell them that they can do this a kind of activity. The objective is to learn the art of puppetry, which is making and performing with puppets. And the materials, well, they can use anything, cardboards, fabric, wool, cotton, small clothes, anything they want. And the benefit of this activity is that students can practice the language, they can learn about puppetry, and they can perform to their own students if they become teachers in the future. So after studying the characteristics of the fables or any tales that we might be teaching, I tell them about this activity, how they can do it, what are the requirements or guidelines, and the evaluation. And so I tell them to work in groups of 3 and to choose a fable or a story. And then they bring it to me and make sure that each group has a different one. I also tell them that it is important that every student speaks like the same number of times, because it's not fair that one student is speaking and speaking and another student just says thanks or good, right? So I tell them that they have to speak the same number of times. And I sometimes tell them, okay, 10 times each, or it depends. If it's something short like this, maybe they can speak just 10 times, and also the same length, because it wouldn't be fair, as I said before, that some students speak and say long paragraphs and then another student just say one word. And so I make sure about that. They can get these scripts from any book, from internet, or they can create. Some students have told me, Professor, can we create and write our own story? And I'm like, yeah, of course. And they do it and they present it and they do a great job. So after that, I tell them to practice. I also tell them that they should bring a sort of stage where they can put it on the desk, and then they have to be behind the desk so they can just show the puppets moving. I tell them that they cannot read, because if they are behind the desk reading, they're not going to move their hands, and then one thing or the other. So I tell them that they cannot read. They have to know what they're going to say so they can just focus on the puppet that is moving. And so they do it. Here I have some other pictures here. There were some students before the pandemic who did it, and they were very excited about it. They brought their stage with little curtains, as you can see, and they were moving their puppets over there. And I took pictures of all the puppets because they were so beautiful. They used cotton, they used different objects and fabrics, and they did a great job. I didn't do it this semester though, but yeah, I'm planning to do it again for sure. And so this was the puppet theater. The next one is writing a haiku, because we teach poetry in this course. And Professor Hania spoke about this yesterday. And so the objective is to learn how to write a short poem, counting syllables, which is the haiku. I learned that the American pronunciation is haiku, and the British pronunciation is haiku. I learned it I went to a short seminar, and then the American professor said haiku. And I was like, really? Is that what, can we say it in both ways? And then I checked the dictionary, and yes, we can say it in both ways. So we explain the haikus, and then we tell students that the themes are about nature, feelings, the origins, right? That they come from Japan, as Professor Hania explained yesterday. And before, I just told them to write the haiku and give it to me on a piece of paper. But then Professor Hania told me that she told the students to illustrate her haikus, and I thought their haikus, sorry, and I thought that was brilliant. And I told my students to illustrate their haikus too. And so I tell them that they can illustrate them using paper, markers, color pencils, everything they want. And the benefit of this activity is that students can practice the English language. They can practice writing their first poem, and they learn about counting syllables, which is the most difficult part for them. Some of the students have problems with this. They don't get the fact that the haiku has 17 syllables, the first line with 5, the second line with 70, I'm sorry, with 7, and the last with 5, making a total of 17 syllables. And then it's hard for them to grasp this. And so they have problems. And then we tell them, okay, you can use like the site that Professor Hanias told us yesterday, www.howmanysyllables.com. And sometimes I have told students go back and to make some arrangements and bring it back to me because the syllables were not appropriate. So talking about the benefits, students can get inspiration to write their own poem, and they can also teach their own students in the future how to write a haiku. So yeah, that's the procedure. We explain it in class, and the origins of haiku, how the characteristics of the haiku, and how they can write one, and the assignment, right? That they have to write one for the following week, and then we explain all the guidelines and what we are going to grade. I tell them it's very easy. You just sit down outside your house and you look at nature. Then you start writing. No, don't count any syllables yet. You just start writing. And then when you have it ready, you start checking if you have the amount of syllables that are required. If that's the case, great. If not, you start, making some changes to adapt it so that you can have 5 syllables at the beginning, then 7 in the second line, and 5 at the end. So I have here an example. This was a student who wrote a haiku, and I was surprised because it was written for me. And then I took a picture because of it, but the other ones were pretty amazing too. And I'm so sorry that I couldn't take pictures of the other ones, but they were mind-blowing. They had faces, they had nature, they had so many beautiful drawings, right? So this student wrote the morning flower, and then she went, the mountain bloom. Then I corrected her at the end. Every day in the morning, just for Glorita, she said. Then I corrected her. I told her that she needed blooms, right? Because mountain wasn't singular. But even so, the line was lacking a syllable because the mountain blooms, right? She had only 4. And then I told her that she could say will bloom. And then if she added the auxiliary, she would eliminate the S, and then she will have 5 syllables. And that, I think that's what she did. Every day in the morning, that's 7 syllables just for Glorita. So that's 5 syllables. And then that was pretty nice. I was touched. And then I took a picture of it, and I'm glad I did because now I can show it to you. And so this is the activity of the haikus, and I'm sure you did a great job with the assignment that Professor Hania assigned yesterday. Oops, I'm sorry. Then, oops, Oh my gosh, wait a minute. I cannot see it because this is white. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, let me go back just like this. Okay, we were here. So the next activity is creating a haiku mural, and just with all the haikus that we receive in class from the students, we can tell them to create a mural showing their haikus outside. So on the whole, so the objective is to create a haiku mural to be read and admired by other students at the English department and professors as well. The materials, they can use anything: cardboard, paper, markers, colored pencils, pictures, and of course, their haiku. And the benefit is that students can read and learn from their classmates' haiku, and they can do the same when they become professors, right? This particular group decided to, as haikus come from Japan, they got inspiration from the cherry trees, and so they did it this way. And as they were very few students, they were just like 12 in that class, they could actually show their haiku with their drawing, and they wrote their names also. And so people could see the drawing, the haiku, and everything. Basically, I give them, after they give it to me and I grade it and I give it back, I give them the guidelines to do it, the size, how they have to hang it at the English department, not sticking it on the wall, for not having the paint coming off. That's very important. So I always tell them to hang their murals with nylon. And then I tell them different things on how to, like the size and all of that, and a date for them to prepare it and to have it ready. And so yeah, this is what they did. The other class was larger. They had more, this class had more students, so they couldn't actually present the drawing, and they just presented the haiku with their names. So over here we have this was a previous exhibit from before the pandemic. And they just had the haiku under names, and then they had the group over here, my name, and all of that. The shift, I think, was morning shift. And this was this last semester. They also wrote their haiku, their names. And I told them that it was kind of small, right? Because it needs to be big enough so students can see it. So this was activity number 7, creating a haiku mural. Then the next activity is making a video poem. I like this activity very much because it gives students the opportunity to create another poem without counting syllables, because I don't want them to go and finish the semester thinking that a poem is written just like that, counting syllables. I want them to experience the freedom of just writing a poem without counting. And then of course, we teach them in that class that they can write using rhymes, or they can write using free verse. And so the objective of this activity is to write their own poem and create a video afterwards. The materials, well, pictures, instrumental music, because the video has some music at the end, in the background. And they need a video software where they can make it, and then they can send it to me. The benefit of this activity is that students can enhance their creativity, they can develop their poetic and writing skills. And the procedure, okay, after talking about haikus and all of that and other types of poems, I tell them about this activity and I give them the guidelines. I tell them that they are going to first write a poem, and that I tell them that it can be about anything. It can be about family, it can be about friends, it can be about love, it can be about the pandemic, it can be about classes, any topic, any theme they would like to write about. And I give them all these guidelines. I tell them that the video, after writing the poem, then they're going to record their voice. After practicing many times, they're going to record their voice when they are ready. Of course, practicing the pronunciation and all of that. And when they're ready, they're going to record their voice. After recording themselves, reading their own poem, then they're going to look for pictures that match the poem. Then they're going to look for some instrumental background music that they can use. And I tell them that the music has to be lower than their voices, because I want to listen to their voice. The instrumental music can be there, but not louder than their voices. I also tell them that the first slide is going to be their names, the title of the poem, then the poem comes. Then at the end of their poems, they are going to have a slide which explains 3 poetic devices that they found in their poems. And I tell them, you don't have to think that you're going to write an assonance, alliteration, metaphor, or simile. You look for that afterwards. And so they do. At the end, they present a final slide with 3 poetic devices. For example, they say, okay, in my poem, I found 3 poetic devices. They write it down. I found assonance. They have to define what assonance is, and they have to indicate where they found it in their poems, like giving me the examples. And they have to provide 3 examples with 3 different poetic devices. And then at the end, they have to write a short dedication, 2 or 3 sentences, and saying they dedicate this poem to a family member or something like that. I also give the students a rubric and tell them how they're going to be evaluated. I tell them that the first slide needs to have the presentation, that I'm going to evaluate their tone of voice, their pronunciation and diction, their intonation and speed. I'm going to check if the pictures are related to the poem, because sometimes the poem is about something and the pictures are totally different. So that needs to be related. I tell them that the background instrumental music has to be appropriate and not too loud. And I tell them that one of the last slides should include the written poem. I would like to see the written poem for me to pause the video and check if that poem is not plagiarized. So I tell them to write it also. And I tell them that that the poem should contain 12 to 15 lines. So they can write like 3 stanzas of 4 lines each, like 3 quatrains, or they can decide which type of stanza they would like to use. And I tell them that one of the last slides should mention, define, and explain 3 poetic devices, as I said before. And then that the last slide contains the dedication, 2 to 3 sentences, and also that the video is 1 minute long or 1 minute and a half. And I also tell them that grammar, I'm going to evaluate grammar when they write, when they speak as well. So this is not the whole rubric. It's not complete. It actually has 10 items, but I just put that picture there just to give you an idea. So I wanted to include the video, one example of one of the videos here, but I couldn't. I had some issues, technical issues with my PowerPoint. So I think I can show it. Let me stop sharing and look for it so I can show it. But I don't see it here. No, apparently it's not here. I have it open, but let me just a second. Oh, maybe it's because of this. Okay, give me just 1 second to see if I can show it. Okay, I have one here. Let me see if it's possible. Okay, can you see it? Can you see it?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Let's see if it's possible.
Nature Daydream by Miguel Olmos. Sitting on a bench with a friend of mine, thinking of everything that suddenly aligns. The flowers and the leaves, the birds and the trees. I can't help but feel that life is bliss. Sometimes I find myself staring at nothing, unaware of the process that brings it all together. The cycle of life that's always rewarding us with a view to make us feel better. The fresh air flowing through my veins intoxicates me with peace that in my heart reigns. We follow the path marked by the rain, where we realize that nature is always great.
Okay, so this was the first video. This video was created by a student named Miguel Olmos. He did an amazing job, has a great pronunciation, and he followed all the instructions. The video was 1 minute and 6 seconds, and he showed all the guidelines, and I was so proud. And I really like to read his dedication. He said that he didn't have any idea of how to do this. And one of his classmates, the one that sits next to him, showed him how to do it. They went outside and he told him, hey, look at the trees, look at nature, and you can start writing your own poem. And so he dedicated this poem to his friend. I think that was very nice. Okay, let me stop sharing so I can possibly show you another one. Okay, I don't know if I can show you this. Let me see. Apparently, yes. This is another one. Can you see it? Can you
Yes.
see it? Oh,
Yes.
perfect.
In the darkest night, in deep solitude, with tears in my eyes and a lump in my throat, I thought it would be my end. But you grabbed me in your arms. Your love drowned the pain. There is nothing to fear anymore. I am surrounded by the arms of the Father. You are light in the dark, peace in adversity, strength in weakness. Nothing in this world compares to you, my God.
Okay, so this was the second and last video point that I wanted to show you. Let me stop sharing. I'm going back to my presentation. So I really like this activity. I think I saw something similar on the internet that was called Poetry in Motion, but the way they did it, it was a high school in the United States, and the way they did it was a little bit different. They had a classic poem, like for example, Emily Dickinson's, right? Some of the poems that you read with Professor Hania. So they had one classic poem, and then they read it aloud, they put some background music, and they showed some pictures. And then I said, I can do something similar, but with the students creating their own poems. So that's how this idea came about. And let me go back to the PowerPoint to share my screen with you. Just a second. Yeah. Okay, yeah, it's right here. So there are some variations that we can do in this activity. The only setback that I could say I find here is that the teacher is the only one who can watch the video, and then the other classmates cannot, right? So one variation could be that you bring the projector to class and you can show every student's videos, right? And so that everybody can watch the videos. It's just a 1-minute video. So, but it would take you like 2 classes to do that, depending on how many students you have. So that could be a variation that that everybody could watch everybody's videos. It would be amazing because they can learn from each other. However, another variation, and a very interesting one, would be making a poem, yes, but without making the video, and doing a poetry slam in class. So they write the poem, yes, you tell them to read them. We show them videos about reading poetry aloud. And then we can do in the classroom like a poetry slam, which is poetry competition, right? The term came about in the 1980s, something around 1985, by a man called, or with the last name Smith, in Chicago in the United States. And they started these poetry slam competitions, and it was very successful. Before that, they had like boxing rings where the 2 contestants would, recite poetry, but they changed that after Mr. Smith saw that it wasn't so good, I would say. And then he bought like a club, and then he created these nights where people could recite poetry and compete. So I think there are 3 regulations. The poem has to be your own poem. It has to be original. They don't use any background music nor accessories or costumes. But in class, we can change it a little bit. So we tell them to practice, and then we bring a microphone to class, or we invent one. And we can play soft background music, and then they can come as volunteers to read their poems. In that sense, and because the classes have like 20, 25 students, we will tell students to write shorter poems, maybe 2 stanzas, or maybe a haiku, right? Like Professor Hania taught. And we could tell them to go as volunteers to read them, so that everybody can listen to their creations. Maybe it's going to be like an open mic situation, or maybe we're going to be waiting for students to stand up. So it would be a good idea to ask them before time who would like to volunteer first, who would like to be second, and so you have a list, and then they know. And then at the end, the public, the audience decides which are the 3 winners, and maybe you can bring them a little gift or something for reciting poetry, their own creations in their classroom. So this would be a variation to the video poem. I think I'm going to do this next time because I've been doing the video poem during many semesters. And so I think I'm going to change to this to see how it comes out. And I'm going to ask Professor Lucy Shaw for some suggestions and recommendations because she's an expert on this. Maybe she can illustrate us a little bit at the end. And so, yeah, that would be the variation for this activity. Then the next activity is the Reader's Theater. We spoke about this yesterday a little bit when Professor Orlando was presenting or talking about the fables. And this is a very common and famous activity that we can do in our classes as well whenever we are teaching, well, in this particular class, the children's literature, whenever we are teaching fables or when we are teaching fairy tales or folk tales or myths or legends, right? So the objective is to learn about readers' theater techniques in order to perform in class. Students like this activity because they don't have to memorize anything. They just read and they have the script, but they have to practice a lot their reading techniques, the intonation, voice modulation, right? And the materials, well, they need to have the script with them and a folder. Sometimes, as you can see in the picture, my students used a folder, and I think that was great because in that way it looked like more formal, and they were not flipping pages all over. So the benefit of this is that students can practice voice modulation, intonation, and develop their reading skills. Of course, we can show them videos of how this is done before, and we can also tell them or show them the rubric that we are going to use to evaluate them, right? And so, yeah, we explain to them that they're going to do this activity. We tell them to have groups of 3, 4, 5. We tell them to bring the script to us so that we make sure it's not too long or too short and that it complies with the requirements that we would like to. In that case, I told them that they could be groups of 6. And I checked their scripts beforehand to see that everybody spoke maybe 10 times, 10 to 12 times. And it could be a script from internet, or they can also write it themselves. That would be fantastic. And so they do it, they present it in class on the assigned date, and they have lots of fun. Something very interesting that we can tell them besides reading techniques, besides practicing pronunciation, intonation, we can tell them that they can also do gestures and that they can include any type of noise from the story. Like, for example, if it's raining, they can do it with their mouths, like they can do like shh, they can do that. If there is thunder, for example, they can have a page and and then that sound can create the sound of a thunder, right? Can imitate it. If wind is blowing, they can go and they can do many things with their voices, right? So we can tell them that they can do special effects as well. So this is the Reader's Theater. And then the next activity is a role play. When we are teaching this course, we also tell students that, in my case, one of my midterm exams was to perform a role play based on a tale, myth, or legend. I told them that they could bring cardboard, like to set the stage, and they could bring costumes and objects that make their role play more realistic. And the benefit, I'm sorry about the car. And the benefits, well, students can practice their English language as well as acting and drama skills. The procedure, well, I tell them to make groups of 6 in this case. Sometimes there are 4, 5, and I tell them to choose a story. It could be a fairy tale, it could be a myth, it could be a legend, and to bring it to me so I can see it. I tell them that everybody has to speak like 12 to 15 times. The length should be equal for everybody. And they ask me if they can have a narrator. if the narrator can read. And I say, well, if the narrator has another role, the narrator can read, but when he's playing his role, he doesn't read. I know, Professor, he's only going to be the narrator. Okay, then the narrator doesn't read. If he's just a narrator, he doesn't read. I tell them that they can create their own scripts or they can bring it from internet. Usually when they bring it from internet, they have to modify it because it from internet, it is adapted to what, 10 characters, 10 readers, right? And they are only 6. So they have to eliminate some characters, and then they have long lines that they have to adapt. And so they work on that during several weeks. They bring it to me 2 times, 3 times until it's ready. And then I tell them to practice a tone of voice, to practice without reading, to practice in an empty classroom at the English department, or to go to the outdoors theater that we have at the university that it's called the 12. I tell them to go there so they can practice their tone of voice and that they can feel that they over there at the 12 they have to speak aloud because it's an outdoor theater. And so if they practice there, when they come to the classroom, it's going to be easier. So they do it, they have lots of fun, and it's amazing. This group this was this semester, they did Robin Hood, and these other guys did the 4 Little Pigs. They reinvented the story, and here is the wolf. And these girls did a Greek myth, something about the forbidden fruit. I don't recall the name, but they did an excellent job. They brought the costumes, their pronunciation was incredible, fluency, and they also played some background music when they were talking, and it was amazing. So this is the activity, and actually this was going to be the last, but then I remember another activity and I really wanted to share it with you. So this activity doesn't have to do with any of the content per se from the class, but I like it a lot. I call it positive message board, but that's not the name. And I learned this activity with Professor Joel Alvarez. Thank you so much, Professor Joel. I went to the University of Panama, I think it was Regional de Cocalé, and we had this amazing and unforgettable seminar with Professor Joel and the guys from the Peace Corps, and they taught us so many activities, and this was one of them. So the objective is to write inspiring messages for the people in class, right? For the classmates. The materials are envelopes, papers, markers. I usually bring the envelopes and I tell students, okay, you're going to take this envelope, write your name, and draw a little something that represents something important for you. It could be an object, or it could be a member of your family, it could be a book, anything. And so I give them my example. It's always the same. I write my name, and then I tell them that this is my family. This is me, my parents, my sisters, my brothers, right? Actually, one was missing. Oh, no, yeah, we're fine. And I tell them that they are very important in my life, so that's why I decided to draw them. And then they do the same. Write their names, they draw something very important for them, and then I collect the envelopes and I do something like this. I give a title to it, like positive message board, like it's on right here. And then I put the envelopes, I buy some manila paper, colorful paper, and then I put the envelopes not in this position, I put them in columns, because I put it in the classroom. I tell them to hang it there, and then I take it every day. I take it back. I don't leave it there because then students from other classes can take the messages, can, damage it, and that's not the idea. So every time I come, I tell my students to hang it, and then I take it, I fold it, and I take it with me. If I notice that students are not sending messages to their friends. Then I tell them, okay, next class, you're going to bring 5 little messages or 10 little messages to different students, and I'm going to give you a grade for that. So they show it to me, and then they go to the back of the classroom and they start like, putting the messages inside the envelopes. I put it at the back so that students don't see, Professor Sandra is, putting a message inside my envelope. No, so they don't look. That's the idea. And if they do, they're not going to be able to read what it says. So that's okay. And then I do this like for 3 weeks or for a month. And the idea is that each person has different messages, inspiring messages. And the benefit is that students can practice their writing, and they can share empathy and encouragement and inspiration with their other classmates as well. They write beautiful things like, I like the sound of your voice. I like when you come into the classroom every morning and you say, good morning, smiling. They write that for their classmates, right? I like your shiny hair. I thank you for correcting my pronunciation. I think you have a beautiful pronunciation. And they write things like that. And then at the end, for example, I like doing this the second semester because then I give it at the end of the second semester, which would be like a Christmas gift. And then at the end of the class, everybody takes their envelope and then they start reading it, and it's really beautiful. As I am the model, I also receive an envelope and I receive messages as well. And they are very uplifting. Sometimes I'm at home and I happen to find one of these because I have quite a lot because I've done it in different classes. And then I start reading it and I'm like, oh, that was so beautiful. And it just uplifts your spirit. So I think it's a beautiful activity, and I encourage you to practice it. And I would be forever grateful to Professor Joel for showing it to me because it's amazing. And you can do it in several ways. So with this, I finish the first subject, which is children's literature. And now I'm going to continue. Oh, there are some books that I use in this class. Nursery Rhymes, the one I told you. Then we also use the book Children and Their Literature, which is here. And we use our other books. Very, very interesting where we get our material. But then I was going to talk about the short story course and some of the activities that we can do in that course. But I wanted to know if you had any questions in regards to the activities that I explained about the children's literature course.
Just a comment. I'm proud of you. Wow.
Oh, thank you.
That's a message in the envelope. Thank you. It was nice.
Oh, remember we did that in the reading club once?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a beautiful experience.
Yeah. And also the poetry activity, the one with the video, I was surprised. I mean, how much effort they must have put into it. I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know they did such a thing. I congratulate you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Marisol. Thank you so much. I think it's a beautiful experience helping them go through this activity. It's hard because through the process, I asked them, how are you guys doing with the poem? And they're like, we are dying. We don't know what to write. We don't know. But then they help each other. As you saw, Miguel that said that his classmate helped him to do it, right? And so they help each other to use software where they can record their videos. How can they ask the other classmates like how they can record their voices? They are the generation of technology, so they help each other very well. And it's very interesting. It is a little bit, it's a lot of work for them and also for us as professors to grade, because if we have 33 students, we have to grade 33 videos, right? They are short videos, only 1 minute, 1 minute and a half. However, we have to complete all the rubric, and so it takes time. So that's why I'm planning to do the poetry slam next time, to have it there and see, you know, what they come up with, and everybody can see, can listen to what they develop. But yeah, it's a beautiful activity. I like it a lot. And I have all the videos because they send it to my email. So I have all the videos of all the students. And actually, this is just an anecdote. One student told me that he didn't know he could write and that it was a breathtaking experience for him. And now he has written many poems and he's planning to write a book in the future. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So I'm glad that the activity could inspire him and some students to write poetry, um and who knows, maybe they will become poets in the future. Is there any other comment or question about the children's literature activities?
Hello, Glorita.
Hi,
How are
Lisa. Doing well. How about you?
Oh, yes. Same. I have a question for you.
Sure.
Well, the first, I want to tell you that these activities are excellent activities for those students who are going to start in the English department. They
Correct.
encourage them and motivate them to follow in the career. Congratulations. But I have a question, okay? Because I used to teach this subject too. How much time did you give your students to prepare their activities? Or they work at home or in the classroom?
Well, I give them, thank you. Thank you so much, Nisla, for your comment and your question. I give them, if it is, for example, the nursery rhymes, I could give them like 2 weeks to prepare. If it is the video, I give them like 3 weeks. And sometimes they ask me for some more time, so I could give them a month because I explain it with time. And then I just keep going with the other topics that we have to explain, and they continue working at home. With the little books, I might give them just 1 week because that's something, the cover, they don't need too much time for that. For writing the book, I would give them more time, maybe 2 weeks. So yeah, it depends on how hard the assignment is, how much time it's involved in it. Then I consider, okay, I'm going to explain this. I'm going to give them 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. But in the meantime, I will continue with the classes. Sometimes they start working in class and then they finish at home. But the setback of doing works at home is, the plagiarism. So we take, for example, with the videos, I take a lot of time grading them because I have to confirm that those poems are original, and then it takes me a lot of time to do that. So yeah.
Well, it is not easy. Some of the I used to have some of the activities, but be sure that since now on I will follow you as a model with these activities. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
I'm glad
Thank
that,
you,
that
Lorita.
they help. Sure.
Yes, because the students always have something to deny the works. Well, in my case, some of the students, not all of them, some of the students always have an excuse for not to work in that way. Okay?
Absolutely.
Because they say that they have to spend a lot of money with, for example, the customs and something like that.
Correct.
But I will try.
Sure, I tell them, use something old. Use something old. Don't buy anything. And I mean, use something from your mom and then get a belt and just get in there and act. I tell them not to buy anything.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much, Glorita. Congratulations
Thank
once
you.
again.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. I think we can continue with the questions at the end, and we can continue with the short story course, which is English 262. So the objective of this course, according to the program, is to learn to analyze, discuss, and write about short stories using literary devices to develop their critical thinking. And regarding the course content, at the very beginning, we explained literary devices, which is what Professor Orlando did on Monday, and he did a magnificent job explaining the literary devices. That's what we do at the beginning. And then we start talking about the short story and the characteristics of it. And then we have students reading short stories with themes about death, man-woman relationships, communication values, the presence of women in short stories, family, social classes and journeys and adventures. So we as teachers, we pick the different stories that we would like to. In my case, I teach okay, I'm thinking about Kate Chopin, one of the first ones. Kate Chopin, Ernest Hemingway, Edgar Allan Poe, D.H. Lawrence, and you name it, right? And so the activities for the course, the short story, I'm going to show about literary elements, group work, short speeches, individual or in couples, role plays, in-class compositions, comparison and contrast, rewriting the story, self-portrait based on a short story, and class participation. So the first one is the short story activity 1, literary elements. Just like Professor Orlando explained the plot, the ironies, the symbols, when we explain that to students, we can have some time to tell them to work in groups and just focus on one device. For example, okay, you 3, groups of 3, you guys are going to discuss 3 symbols that you found in the story. Another group, okay, you guys are going to discuss ironies, but not all because there are 5 kinds. So you guys are going to discuss verbal and dramatic ironies. Another group, okay, you guys are going to discuss situational ironies. And you guys in another group, you're going to discuss conflicts, right? The objective is to learn the different literary devices and apply them in literary analysis, because this is very hard for students at the beginning. Sometimes they read and they said that they didn't understand anything and they have to read again, and they have to look up words in the dictionary. So it's even more difficult to apply, to identify the devices, right? The elements. So if they do it in groups, if we give them a chance to do it in groups, like for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, that would be very enlightening for them, because then they can say, oh, that's the way we finance. Oh, that's the way we one. So the benefit would be for students to develop reading skills and critical thinking. And the procedure is, as I said, after reading the story at home and before having the discussion, we can do this, right? We can have students in groups of 3, and we can tell them to just discuss one literary device that we're going to tell them. And then we give them some minutes. And then at the end, you decide if one student is just going to explain everything or the 3 are going to speak. I prefer the 3 of them to say something. And then this, I would evaluate this as class participation, that I'm going to explain how I do it at the end. And so this could be it. They can speak from their seats. They don't have to stand up, not to have any pressure, right? So this is some of the things that I have done, and I think that it has helped some students to identify some of the devices better. There are some variations to this, and we can tell them to do short speeches about those devices. Okay, it could be individual or in couples, and we can tell them, you guys are going to talk about ironies. You guys are going to talk about conflicts, right? And they can prepare at home and they can come to class and do it. We can tell them just to take 3 minutes to do so. They, however, it takes too much time and we need that time in class. In my case, I have not assigned short speeches in that class because it takes a lot of time. But they can record their speeches using Flipgrid. Nowadays, I think it's called Flip. Professor Hania loves using this. And so they can record their speeches and then you can listen to it and evaluate the speeches at home. And then you don't take time of the class for the speeches. Another variation could be writing in class compositions or compositions are too long, maybe just paragraphs about the ironies. What situational ironies did you find in the story of an hour? What conflict did you find in the story of an hour? And they write a short paragraph in class to avoid plagiarism. And they can do it individually or they can do it in couples as well, right? The next activity is activity number 2, comparing and contrasting short stories versus short films. And the objective is to learn how to compare and contrast literary works because some students have problems and difficulties actually comparing and contrasting. And so we tell them, okay, when you compare, you talk about the similarities. When you contrast, you talk about the differences. But for some students at the beginning, it is hard. So I really like using Padlet. I embed it in my platform. I really like using Schoology. However, I'm a little bit sad because Schoology is not going to be longer. It's no longer going to be available for basic purposes, like as I used it. I think now we have to be part of an organization to be able to use it. So I'm very sad. From October on, we are not going to be able to use it anymore. But they are giving us the opportunity to take all the information that we recorded there. So I include this Padlet into my platform. And amazingly, there is a short film for all the stories that we teach. And this is great for students to compare and contrast the real text with the short film that they are looking at. So some of the benefits are students learn to explain similarities and differences, and they develop their critical thinking too. So after they read the story at home, and it could be before the discussion, the analysis that we do in the classroom, we could tell them to watch some of the videos, that I have here on Padlet. So I usually teach at the very beginning Tanzan and Aikido, which is legend, right? Japanese legend. And it's very short and it's about 2 monks. And I'm laughing because we learned this with Professor Colomba Luque Perez. And she used to say that a student said or wrote 2 monkeys instead of 2 monks. And I think it was one of my classmates, and he always talks about that. And it's very funny. But the idea is that we never forgot the difference between monkeys and monks, right? And so there is the acquisition of vocabulary right there. And so then they can watch this short version of Tanzan and Aikido and they can compare the real text with the short film. And also I tell them to write a short comment here. They can write a short comment about the similarities and differences or anything. And then I take that into consideration for evaluating it as class participation. The parable of the prodigal son is also in the book that we use. And so there is a short film about it, and it's beautiful. And they can also compare and contrast it with the text. I wrote here the biography of Kate Chopin. I included here the biography of Kate Chopin and Right Fix, which is a story by her that I like teaching. She also has the story of an hour, and there is also a short film for the story of an hour that is amazing. And so students can write the comparisons that they see between the text and the short film. I also have an audiobook version of the story Misery by Anton Chekhov. I found a short film, but I didn't like it because it was like too bloody, and I decided not to include it. But they can listen to it and have a different experience and react to it as well. The Cask of Amontillado has different films on YouTube, and I like some of them. And there is an old one and a newer version. I posted both of them so students can react to them and tell me about the comparisons and contrasts that they find with the text and the short film. There is also one about Cat in the Rain by Ernest Hemingway. And then there is another one that I have there that is about The Horse Dealer's Daughter by D.H. Lawrence. And so they can watch this video so they can react to them, writing there the similarities that they find and the differences that they find as well. And so I take this into account for evaluating class participation. Then this is a way now talking about class participation. This is sort of the way I evaluate class participation. And it's not an activity actually, because it's a part of my evaluation. In my classes, class participation represents 10% of the final grade. So I tell students that they have to participate in each class at least once, that they can make a comment, that they can tell us about a possible irony that they found, because sometimes they are not sure. Even if they are not sure, they can share it, because through sharing, we all learn, right? And their classmates discover, oh, so that's the way we do it. Oh, and then the teacher is not providing all the information. So the objective is to encourage them to express themselves in class. The benefit is that students start to participate in literary discussions, because it's not easy. I mean, when they have to say something in class about the story, that, okay, what about you? Can you tell us about the conflict? They shake, like, because they don't know if what they're going to say is correct, or they don't know what to say. They don't know if they read it and they understood it. And so I tell them, do it little by little. Say whatever you think, and you will see that that is right. And if not, we will correct it, and we will all learn from the experience. And then, so yeah, what I do is I make a form like this. I write their names. I write the dates in which I'm going to be having discussions of the different stories. For example, here I'm going to discuss Right Fix by Kate Chopin, and I write the date as well. And then I ask questions about the ironies, the symbols. And if students volunteer, I start, writing check marks that at the end, I'm going to count and I'm going to write a number. And that's going to say how many participations they had that day. At the end, that adds to 25 classes in which we have discussions, or maybe 20. And the idea is that they participate at least once. Sometimes they participate more than that, like 3 times one day, so next day they don't have to participate. And at the end, they have 20 participations. Perfect. Then they have their 10%. Sometimes they have more than 20. They have 30 participations. They already have 100, right? They're 10%. And so on. But some students have problems to reach to 20. And so some variations could be that, what I just explained about writing a comment on the differences and similarities on the Padlet between the text and the short film. So that could be a variation. Or we can tell them to, give me just a minute. I don't know if that's the next. Yeah, we can tell them to, like, with a classmate in couples, to have like a short sketch about, and a role play about the beginning of a short story. They can prepare at home, and the next day they come and they present it. You tell them, okay, I'm going to, if you read, I will give you just 2 or 3 points, class participation. But if you don't read, I will give you 5 points. Wow, 5 points for class participation is really good. So, and then they practice at home, and then they can come and they can prepare a short sketch of the beginning of the short story, The Cask of Amontillado by Edgar Allan Poe. And they go, one of them is Montresor, the other one is Fortunato, and they go, Fortunato, you're luckily mad, my friend. And, you know, they start talking. And just the beginning, not the complete story, just the beginning for them to get more confidence. And in that way, they can get some participation points, because class discussions sometimes are hard for some students. And so, yeah, we can tell them to do this or to write on the Padlet, and we can vary the class participation. The next activity would be rewriting a short story. And basically, it is to rewrite the story from a different point of view. So the objective is to learn to write a short story from a different point of view. For example, if the short story is written in first-person point of view, like the Cask of Amontillado, that is written in that way, first-person narrator, and Montresor is the one telling the story. After the discussion, after everything, then we can tell them, okay, so we're going to have an activity, and now you're going to write the story. It doesn't have to be the complete story, maybe just part of it. You're going to write this story from the point of view of Fortunato. Fortunato now is going to tell the story. And then, you know, Montresor starts telling the amount of injuries that Fortunato did to him, and he got revenge. So now, and then he said that he's going to try to find Fortunato and you know, try to avenge what he did to him that we never saw. But then if they write the story from the point of view of Fortunato, it would be totally different. Fortunato would start like, I love carnivals, and this day I was enjoying the supreme madness of carnivals, and I love wine, and I was drinking wine, and suddenly I saw my friend Fortunato, who greeted me enthusiastically and told me about the Amontillado. And oh my gosh, I so much love Amontillado that I decided to leave the carnival and join him to his vaults or to his catacombs to see the Amontillado, because it's a wine that is extraordinary. I mean, something like that they changed the story from the point of view of a different character. The same can happen with Ripe Figs, that is by Kate Chopin, and we can see, okay, the story narrated through the point of view of the godmother or through the point of view of Babette. And so we can change, right? The benefit is that students develop writing skills, also their creativity, and they practice punctuation, because they have to use a lot of quotation marks, and then they need to know where the punctuation goes. Like if they put a period, it goes inside the quotation mark. If they put a question mark, it goes inside the quotation mark. Some other marks go after, and then the commas. And professor, what do I do? Where do I put it? Right. So it's a great opportunity to observe and practice punctuation. And so, yeah, that would be the way to do it. I recommend doing this after the discussion, after discussing all the literary elements, then we can go with that, right? And then, oops, I don't find here it is. The next activity is self-identity portrait based on a short story. So I was talking to a friend a fellow professor, and he teaches in high school. And he was telling me that in that moment, he was grading some self-identity portraits that he had assigned to his students. And then I told him how that worked. And then he explained to me that he explained to me how it worked and that we could use it also to when we have literature classes. So this activity can be done in the children's literature course and also here in the short story. So the objective is to express their thoughts about a literary work in an artistic way. Basically to express their thoughts, their ideas, to talk about or to discuss the symbols, the ironies, the conflicts, right? But in an artistic way. The benefit is that they develop creativity, they use literary devices, they practice English orally and also written. And then the procedure is after they read the story, after we have the class discussion about all the literary elements, the characters, if they're major, if they're minor, if they're flat, if they're round, about the ironies, about the conflicts, about the themes, symbols, after all the discussion, we can ask them to do this type of activity. And we would tell them that they have to find, it could be a cardboard, it could be just paper, 8.5 by 11, and they have to draw a face. Half of the face, you decide which part, is going to be the external aspects, right, that people see. For example, our hair, our eyes, nose, mouth, etc. And the other half is going to be the internal thoughts. In this case, the internal thoughts that we have about the story. In the picture, it's a little bit different because it's her own identity. And so the student wrote that she likes pizza, she likes playing with makeup and things like that. But in our case, as it's the analysis of a short story, in the inside, the student is going to draw what they grasped about the story. They can draw some of the symbols. They can draw anything related to the conflict. They can draw the characters. They can draw different things that call their attention. And then they, of course, they can use colors and markers and all that. Then they can come to class and they can show it and they can explain it. But again, it would take too much time to listen to everybody present their self-identity portrait based on a short story. So on the back, instead of presenting it in class, another variation would be that on the back of the page, they write a paragraph or two about their inner thoughts. What stuck with them from that story, that they explain all the drawings on the back, then they give it to you, you read it at home, and that could be great for, I don't know, if you have like me, like I have 20% for for classwork, quizzes, it could be there, or it could be the 10 of class participation. But I think I would include it because I have not done this activity yet. I would include it in the 20% that I have for quizzes and classwork. And so you decide if you would like them to present it, or if you would like them to write it, which is better because you have more time in class. And as I said before, this could be done in your short story course with any fables are kind of short. So it could be with any folk tale, fairy tale, or the novel. I usually teach in the children's literature course different novels. We do that at the end. And we teach, I teach sometimes Black Beauty, and they can, after they read it, they can just draw some of the elements that call their attention about that. So that would be the procedure. And these are some of the books that I use in this course. This is the one that we use when we were studying our BA with our dear Professor Colomba. This is an introduction to literature. This other one, we use it in our master's program in contemporary literature, the story and its writer. And this one I got when I went to a seminar in Kentucky. It's actually an evaluation copy, but it's pretty good. It's very similar to this, but it has some other articles, very useful for teaching our classes. And that's it. The next one is American literature, but that's going to be for tomorrow. So thank you very much, guys. Thank you. If you have any questions or comments, now is the time to talk about them.
Thank you, Glorita, for such an inspiring and interesting presentation.
Thank you.
I personally would like to make a comment about one of your recommendations. Okay, and it has to do with the reading of poetry as well as rhymes. I find that quite useful. The reading that particular activity is quite useful specifically for pronunciation classes. It really works beautifully, where students tend to realize the importance of that musicality that the language has, that they would not be able to perceive any other way. So definitely that, I agree with you totally. It can be very versatile in that it can be applied to not only to pronunciation, but even to grammar. I mean, you touched upon some elements that could be used to enforce even grammar. So indeed, reading is such an enriched skill. Okay, it's so helpful to students. So yes, and I congratulate you for such an interesting presentation.
Thank you so much, Professor.
Yeah, having said that, I wonder if there are any questions that would like to be addressed to the presenter.
Professor Glorita, thank you very much for your presentation. I really like it. Professor Glorita, I have a question. Where can I find this kind of books? Or there is a bookstore here in Panama for where they sell this kind of books, or you just buy it abroad?
Well, yes, when we bought thank you so much for the question. When we bought them, we had somebody, who brought them to us. And what we do now is that we buy them online. We buy them on Amazon, and then we have one of these places where they bring it for you, and then we pay a little bit. Last time, Professor Hania bought some books like this for her, I think it was short story course on North American literature, and we can buy them we can buy the secondhand version that would be a little bit cheaper, because these are thick books, right? So if we buy the secondhand version, but sometimes don't have anything wrong, right? It's just that they bought it, they looked at it, and they just didn't use it. So we can, I would go for that, the secondhand version, and would buy it online. I don't know if we can find this text like on at this Texa or any of these bookshops here in Panama. Probably.
Yo encontré la internet que los huevos son buenos para los perros.
I'm sorry. I think that was Professor Marisol.
Okay, I was checking in Amazon. Thank you very much.
That was my husband making me a comment about my dog outside. He's having breakfast. I need my dog.
Don't worry. Don't worry. Yes, Karen. So you might go to this Texa and ask if they have some textbooks for teaching literature or for teaching the specific class that you teach. And I'm sure they have some. Maybe, well, these are all editions. So maybe they will have newer editions that you can buy. This Texa, there is one in, I think it's Tumba Muerto near Price Mart. On that plaza, they have a little this Texa there, so you can go and ask.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question if that is possible.
Of course, Professor, yes.
Yeah, during the prior session held by Orlando, I asked him a question. I'm going to ask you the same question. Culture is always in the way, you know, of the
Absolutely.
teaching of literature and the understanding of, you know, any printed material coming from American culture or elsewhere. So
Right.
how do we go about teaching some cultural elements, you know, being, you know, assisted by literature? Because this is always something that we teachers tend to focus, you know, on. So we want people to expand their understanding of readings, but
Right.
how do you guys propose it is the best way, or it is an effective way for the teaching of culture?
Thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you so much, Professor. I think that's a very interesting question. And yes, when we are teaching literature, definitely we have to deal with cultural aspects, depending on the author of the story and the country where he or she comes from. So yeah, we can teach them cultural aspects as we are reading the story, and as we are discussing it. Like, okay, look at this, because as we as professors have read the story before, we can mark it and we can know where we can tell them to pay attention to cultural aspects, or we can take them out and prepare like a PowerPoint presentation and explain them before. It could be also after the discussion, but I think if we explain it before, it would be better so that they can understand the different elements that take place in the story. For example, when I teach Anton Chekhov's Misery, he's an author from Russia, and a lot of Russian aspects are involved in that story. It's very cold, it's snowing, and so the author talks about a cab, a cab ride to take them some places. So we can teach there the different cultural aspects of that particular country, and also the era, the time where it was written, because they were using horses and we don't use horses anymore. So yeah, we can teach them as we read and as we discuss the literary elements with them, or we can take those elements and prepare some like a sort of characteristics or a PowerPoint presentation related to those elements before we start the discussion, so that they can know when they see them, they can know where they come from, what they are about, why people behave in a certain way, why people use certain expressions. So I think that's very important. Thank you so much, Professor.
So in the end, it has to do with the culture of the time. Yeah.
Correct. Also the
Time.
time. Mhm.
There is one question in the chat box
Yeah.
from Professor, I guess, Santa Maria, I don't know, but it says, were all these activities carried out in just one semester?
Well, no. For example, in the children's literature class that is only one semester, it depends. I don't do all of them because there wouldn't be time, but we can choose. For example, I did almost everything except I didn't do readers theater last semester. I didn't do the book cover, and I didn't do the writing of a story. But I think I did everything else. However, I have done those activities in other semesters, but it would be really hard to do all of them. we can like pick if it's, you decide if you can do the book cover or the story. You decide if you want to do the video or the poetry slam. And so, yeah, like that. Thank you. Thank you so much for the question.
Are there any other questions? Okay, well, once again, Professor Riquelme, it was really, really interesting. Congratulations. This was very enlightening. It helped us to sort of review our teaching of several other subjects, not necessarily literature, but it definitely is very versatile. Well, is there a question here, like a background? Okay. Well, anyways, that is all. That concludes the first half of today's session. We will have a break. Professor Marisol, is it 20 minutes or 15?
It is 15 minutes.
Okay, 15 minutes. So it's pretty much 10 o'clock. So we'll expect you back in 15 minutes, meaning 10:15.
Yeah.
A nice break.
Thank you.
Thank you, Glorita. Excellent.
Thank you, Professor Sandra. Glad you liked it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Hania. Thank you, Cities.
Lolita, I don't know if you already left, but seeing your presentation just makes me want to be your student.
Rita, that's so sweet.
Actually,
Thank you.
I thought of the same thing. I thought, well, maybe if I have a free time, if I mean, if this same time that she has one of those subjects, I'm going to join.
Oh,
Yeah,
that is
a bit there. Yeah.
that is so sweet. You melted my heart. Thank you.
I've only spoken the truth.
Okay, I think the list is growing because there are a lot of comments in the chat box. It's like, me too, so do I. So you're going to have a crowd.
Thank you.
If I lived in Panama, I probably would drop into one of your classes.
Anytime, whenever you have to run some errands, just let me know.
Okay. I'll see you later.
Thank you, Rita. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
You're so sweet.
You too.
Going to pretty much share. It's time for our next session. So let's give people a few minutes to enter once again or be ready for the next presentation. Let's see. Okay. Welcome back, everyone. To continue with today's program, we're pleased to introduce our next guest speaker, Professor Lourdes Gomez. She holds a BA in English, a master's degree in literature, a postgraduate degree in higher education, as well as a secondary degree in education. She has been a member of the jury contest organized by Vicerrectoría Estudiantil since 2015. Besides, she has written articles related to literature, as well as short stories compiled in an anthology, and one of her own ownership. Let me turn the mic to Professor Gomez, who's going to speak about literary criticism as a powerful tool for developing literacy skills. Professor Gomez?
Thank you, Professor Belsis. Do you hear me very well?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clearly.
Okay, literary criticism as a powerful tool to develop literacy skills. To comprehend literary criticism, I think that is necessary to know the terms that are related to it. But before getting into context, I would like to share an experience that I had when I started with literary criticism and literary theories. One day, I asked my students to critique a story that they had to read for an assignment that day. Most of them, not to say all of them, wrote bad things, negative aspects of the story. So it dawned on me that maybe they didn't know what the verb critique implied. Moreover, and worst of all, listen, they wrote that they didn't like the story. Did it surprise me? Maybe not at the moment, but later I thought that sometimes our questions don't permit our students to go beyond and see the author's intentions, or maybe to evolve from one area to another area. As a writer, I can tell you that I don't think if I am including irony settings in a story, because they are important to analyze, obviously, because they are part of the analysis. But there is something else that needs to be discovered by the readers, and it is the context that needs to be discovered by them through the lens of literary theories. So having this in mind, I proceed to explain the literary terms that are associated with literary criticism. On one side, you're going to see the positive terms, and on the other side, you're going to see the negative ones. Okay, let's start with critique, with the verb that I used for this activity. When you say critique, critique is a positive word, finds what is working, its voice is kind and objective. Another word, the critic. This is the person who engages often professionally in the analysis, evaluation, or appreciation of works. Literary criticism, no criticism. Literary criticism is not negative. It's an in-depth critique, and it means a thoughtful critique. So if you notice, critique is used as a verb and as a noun. All right, let's see the negative part. Criticism, isolated, is totally negative. Is spoken with a sarcastic tone, finds faults, looks for what is lacking. And criticize, that I think that most of us use, expresses disapproval or of someone or something. So it's important to know the difference between critique and criticize, because if our students are going to analyze a story based on literary criticism, it's important to know that, to tell them the difference between criticize and critique. Okay. Now, let's see the goals to critique. Critiquing aims to make value judgments on a work, to explain interpretation of a work of literature or another text, to debate with others by using the views of other sources to develop their own points. If you notice, interpretation is in italics and bold, because I'll be expanding this term later because it's worth explaining. what interpretation implies when analyzing a story or a text. And regarding to debate, for instance, we have to control plagiarism, because sometimes if they are going to see other sources to have like an overview of the text, I think that if we are teaching in-person classes, we have to control cell phones, okay? Because they tend to plagiarize. Okay, the title of this presentation is Literary Criticism as a Powerful Tool to Develop Literacy Skills. Okay. I'm going to explain the terms that are in the title because we are going to be deepening on them later. Okay, so it's important to know the definition of these terms. Literary criticism, I said that was positive, but it's also a disciplined activity that attempts to study, analyze, interpret, and evaluate works of literature. So in other words, it's like an overall term for studies and activities that are concerned with interpretation, analysis, evaluation. Literary theory, on the other hand, is an analysis that gives readers the means to critique ideas. It guides critics for effective literary criticism. So if you notice, they are like connected. So in other words, literary theory is like a set of rules. Okay, it denotes in literary criticism, it denotes action. But in literary theory, we are going to see the rules, how to apply it. And then we have literacy skills that refer to the knowledge, techniques, and adaptedness in reading, comprehending, and communicating through writing or verbalizing. So this is like the skills needed to write and read. Okay, so that's why I decided to explain the terms. Okay, now I want a volunteer to read the critique of this student and to know if you are there. Okay, a volunteer to read the critique of the student, please. Are you there? Hello?
Hello, hello, hello.
Thank you, Hania. Can you read it, please? The
Sorry,
critique. I consider.
Okay, critique. I consider the poem to be quite good. It is a poem that could easily be learned by children, and it is perfect to read with children before bedtime.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you guys, if you notice this student wrote critique, but do you think he critiqued it or he criticized it, the poem? I mean, the poem that I provided. What do you think? He criticized the poem or he critiqued it?
Well, I would say there that it's positive what this person says, so it's critique.
So it's critique. Okay, thank you, Hania. Okay, later I'll be giving you the theory that I applied on this activity, okay, because I don't want to spoil it. Okay, now we are going to see why is literary criticism important. Remember, literary that attempts to study, analyze works of literature, okay? So why is that it can broaden a reader's understanding of an author's work by summarizing, interpreting, and exploring its value. Number two, it informs or challenges another reader's understanding of the text. And number three, it creates space for reader literature. Now, I was talking about literary theories, but now we are going to see examples of literary theories. Okay, examples: post-colonial criticism, reader response theory, new criticism, cultural studies, structuralism, post-structuralism, Marxism, gender criticism. This is just a few of them, okay, because the list is quite long. Now, I'm going to explain the importance of literary theories. You're going to see that the importance that I mentioned in literary criticism is quite similar to literary theories because they work hand in hand. Number one, it provides a new perspective to better understand literature. Number two, can influence literature, challenging text to evolve into a new territory, as I explained in the introduction. Can learn about different authors' intentions. And number four, develops the significance of race, class, and gender for literary studies. At times, it's important to include topics related to racism and gender because they are the topics that our students have to deal with on social media. So let's continue. Over time, there has been an increase of a number of literary theories, which are worth reading, especially when we run out of ideas. If you thought that literary theories were quite new, well, let me tell you that the first one dates back to 360 before Christ and was fathered by Plato. And I'm referring to moral criticism. So let's see when the rest got started. For instance, biographical criticism started around 15th and 16th centuries, cultural criticism or cultural studies between 18th and 19th century, structuralism in the 20s, formalism in the 30s, new criticism in the 30s, psychoanalytic criticism in the 30s as well, Marxist criticism in the 30s, reader response criticism, 1960, feminist criticism in 1960, 1966, genderqueer studies that are related to feminist criticism in the 70s, new historicism during the 80s, and post-colonial criticism in the 90s. Okay, just to have an idea of how these theories have evolved. Now, I'm going to explain a little bit about each one, and then when I finish explaining them, then I'm going to give you the excerpts of my students to see how I applied the theory in the activity. Okay, let's start with moral criticism. It judges the value of the literature based on its moral lessons or ethical teachings. Biographical criticism analyzes a writer's biography to show the relationship between the author's life and their works of literature. So I think this is easy to identify because the only thing you have to do is to relate the author's life to his or her work. Cultural criticism or cultural studies aims to look at how culture is created, maintained, shared, and reproduced, and how this process influences and is influenced by structure of power in society. It examines social, economic, and political conditions as well as works by minority ethnic groups and post-colonial writers, the products of folk, urban, and mass culture. It scrutinizes the habitual privileging of race, class, and gender. Structuralism. It is the process of moving from the particular to the general. It places the individual work within a wider structural content. The essence of structuralism is the belief that things cannot be understood in isolation. They have to be seen in the context of larger structures they are part of. So to deepen on this, because I think that is quite hard to understand it, I could add that when you are using this literary theory, it's necessary to depend on other external sources. to explain your analysis. It also includes the binary oppositions. Examples of oppositions, for instance, when Orlando explained hills like white elephants. Binary oppositions could be, for instance, life and death, because they were talking about abortion. Or, for instance, American and a girl, female and male. Okay, another one, formalist criticism. Is that type of criticism that sees literature as primarily a form. It analyzes, interprets, or evaluates the inherent features of a text. These features could include literary devices such as symbols, imagery, setting, etc. The formalist approach reduces the importance of a text's historical, biographical, and cultural context. So in this case, if we use this theory in a particular class, we don't depend on external sources because it's just to analyze the literary devices. On the other hand, we have new criticism. Well, let me tell you that new criticism replaced formalist criticism, okay? Because they are totally alike, okay? If you notice, new criticism focuses on form, structure, language, tone, literary elements, literary techniques, such as characterization, symbol, you see, they are alike, okay? But formalist criticism was created first. Okay, now we are going to say psychological criticism. Psychological criticism can focus on one or more of the following. The author, the characters, the audience, the text. Concerning the author, the theory is used to analyze the author and his or her life and the literary work. So in this case, we can relate the poem to the author's life and make an analysis of why he wrote that poem, or why you see sadness there, and maybe the author had an issue, maybe had a loss, and that's why he wrote that poem. The characters. This theory is used to analyze one or more characters. The psychological theory becomes a tool that explains the character's behavior and motivations. For example, if you read a story where the protagonist is a murderer, evaluating the psychological state, the past of the character might help the reader to understand why he became a murderer. Okay, so you are going to be like the psychologist to analyze the character. With regard to the audience, the theory is used to explain the appeal of the work for those who read it. And as to the text, the theory is used to analyze the role of language and symbolism in the work. To be honest, I only have used the author and the characters analysis. Now we are going to see Marxist criticism. It is an approach to diagnosing political and social problems in terms of the struggles between members of the different socio-economic classes. To use this theory, professors can focus on how the characters in a story interact based on their economic situation. Reader response criticism. Maybe this is the most common criticism used by professors. It focuses primarily on the reader's reaction to a text, and it argues that a text has no meaning before a reader experiences or reads it, okay? Because sometimes we have to permit our students to react, to write their opinions, to see if they liked it or not. So if you use this theory, you're gonna see that you're gonna have subjective opinions. Feminist criticism. It looks at literature assuming its production from a male-dominated perspective. Feminist literary theory also suggests that a gender of the reader often affects our response to a text. For example, feminist critics may claim that certain male writers address their readers as if they were all men and exclude the female reader. And you can perceive it, and when you ask your students to read a story, you can see if the story was written by a male character or a female character, and you're gonna see if feminism is present. Okay, other studies or other theories that emerged right after feminist criticism was created. For instance, we have gender studies, queer studies, gender studies. It draws on feminist scholarship, but it also discusses masculinity in historical and specific ways. In queer studies, it aims to deconstruct what is acceptable or normal, and it examines the nature of sexuality and gender-based normativity and how society defines the concepts of heterosexuality, homosexuality, gender, and sexual identities. Because we cannot exclude them, because we are going to see stories that include this topic. Deconstruction, easy to use, and I know that you have used it. It involves identifying the contradiction within a text claimed to have a single stable meaning, and showing that a text can be taken to mean a variety of things that differ significantly from what it purports to mean or pretends to mean. To deepen on this, I could say that this is when you break something down into its separate parts in order to understand its meaning. It's like when you take a poem and you take verse by verse, word by word, stanza by stanza, and you deconstruct it by analyzing everything to see what it means, all right? New historicism, it is based on the premise that a literary work should be considered a product of the time, place, and historical circumstances of its composition rather than as an isolated work of art or text. So we can study a text without first understanding the importance of the social and political issues of the time that the book was published. And post-colonial criticism examines literature from areas that were formerly colonized and that is often written in the language of the colonizer. So if professors are working with this type of theory, they must know that they are going to be dealing with characters that are somehow treating their slaves. Okay. Now we are going to see examples, because I think that maybe you don't understand how I can apply this theory in the activities. So now I'm going to give you the examples of how I have applied them in the assignment. Okay, let's start with biographical criticism. In this case, they had to relate a poem to the author's life. Okay, so I need a volunteer to read what this student wrote. Please, a volunteer to read it, the relation between the poem and Olson's life.
Olson
Okay.
did
ahead,
not conform the academic composition of poetry. He embraced a natural approach based on one's own unique, intimate experiences of life. He believed that poets are a medium of transportation. Olson was a man tortured by self-doubt, sexual confusions, penury, and recurrent sensations of not belonging.
Thank you, Orlando. Indeed, if you notice, this student had to research to know how the poem he selected was related to the author's life. And you see, he explained it in this way. Another example of biographical criticism is to create a collage, like a storyboard, with curious facts about the author. In this case, we are looking at Percy B. Shelley's In the Course of Shakespeare and Other British Authors. In this case, this student researched about the poem Ode to the West Wind that maybe you have read, and she related to the poet's life. So after moving to Italy, he wrote about the effect that the wind of the West had on humanity and nature, which represented the beginning and the end of something. Okay, so here we have an evidence of how she related to the author's life. We have another storyboard of Jane Austen, and we have another poem, and so on. I don't know if you have a question regarding biographical criticism or a comment, or if you have used it. No? Okay, let's see now reader response criticism. In reader response criticism, I explained that it aims to include the student's opinion of a text. Okay, in this case, they had to post comments or reviews about a couple of poems that they had to read on this website. Okay, so I need a volunteer to read the review this student wrote, please. Only the review. Can somebody read it, please?
I'm gonna try. It's very small.
Oh.
I really like that part. Would you like me to read?
Only that part, only the review. Yes, the comment.
I really like the poem because it reflects the melancholy of a girl who has only tasted the, oh my gosh, I can't see the
Goal of love.
Goal of love. Waiting, she doesn't know if one day will come for her life. It is a poem that doesn't have a rhyme scheme, but makes you feel the mood of the author through its words. It is a nice job, which clearly expresses what she meant.
Okay, so you see, reader response criticism. Remember the first example that you read regarding critiquing? Remember? Okay. It was another example of reader response criticism. I think that besides giving the opinion, you have to also give the opportunity to see if they see the poem worth reading or not. So in this case, we are not applying criticism, but critique, okay? Okay, we have another example. Can you read it, please? I think this is not a poem. This is a short story by Ed Young. I need a volunteer to read it, please.
Okay, I read it. This story is a great example of why parents could reassure their children about the dangers of letting strangers into their own home. Because if they had not disobeyed their mother's order, they would not have been in such a dangerous situation and as almost being eaten by a cunning wolf. This is why I personally would use this book to exemplify what can happen if we disobey an order given by our parents to protect us.
Okay, do you think this student criticized the book or critiqued it? What do you think, guys? Critiqued or criticized?
Critique.
Critique again. Critique again. And we see a subjective opinion. that illustrates also the criticism. Okay, we have another one. This is regarding Rumpelstiltskin that maybe you have read about the little dwarf. Okay, I don't know if you can see the comments. Can you read it, please?
It's too small.
It's too small?
No, you can using your screen, you can zoom in and out. I mean, for us, the audience. So yeah, you want, I can read.
No, let's see another example because I have more. Okay, in this case, can you see it?
Yeah. What says subject, no?
Yes.
Grimm fairy tales, in actually many of the Grimm brothers' tales were and continue to be a theme in the literature society. But how do we say that it applies to society now? We have, for example, the story of the fisherman and his wife. We can see today many people have the little maturity that the fisherman had, who did not have emotional intelligence. Beyond the story, he leaves us a moral about making good decisions. Other stories of the Grimm brothers give us thousands of teachings and themes that we apply daily or see in society.
Again, this student critiqued it or criticized it.
I don't know if it's that mixed. In one case, maybe it's criticizing, but in other, because there are many stories.
Okay, what phrase or sentence led you think that way?
The particular one about the fisherman. Because
So in that case,
now maybe it doesn't apply to the society nowadays.
So you think that is a type of criticism rather than a critique?
But then in the other cases, the other stories, then recommending them to read them.
Exactly, exactly. Okay, how will you correct it, Hania?
Oops.
Yesterday you were saying that you accept any response. So what do you think about this? How do you correct it? Wrong or right? Taking into consideration the literary theory, because this is reader response criticism, I consider this answer right, okay? Because this is a subjective opinion, okay? All right. I don't know if you have any comment before going to psychological criticism.
There is someone raising their hand. Belkis.
Okay, Belkis, go ahead, Professor.
Right, exactly. Well, although I think it is, and it is a comment, and it's my opinion. Although I think the person criticizes it on, and I think that an adequate perception of the story, yeah, it is a tale. I think that at the end, he thought, although it is subjective, well, that's his personal or her personal opinion. It's a Disney, it's okay, it's a lady. It ended up being judgmental. And I think that that's why probably I would consider it has both. It ended up being a little judgmental. And in that case, I think that the positive things happen or providing at the very beginning, at the end, were very narrow. That's my consideration on this particular. So it ended up to be a critique. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Belkis. At this point, when I assigned this task, they didn't know the difference between critique and criticize. So I expected everything, in fact, as I said in the introduction. Okay, psychological criticism. This is one example of of critical criticism, but I don't know if you can visualize it. Can you?
Yeah.
In this case, I'm going to read the instructions. Write the man's, this is the story by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, a very old man with enormous wings. The instructions were, write the man's point of view as if he were part of the story. Remember that Orlando explained point of view, first person, third person narrator. Okay, in this case, they have to apply the point of view. I continue. Write what he thinks, sees, and his reflection. Try to include part of the author's line to incorporate his lines. Use third person narrator. Intervene 5 times along the story. Okay, if you read this story, you're gonna know that the protagonist doesn't speak at all. Okay, he only sees, but he doesn't speak at all. So in this opportunity, they had to think like the protagonist, and they had to include his words as he were talking to someone. So in this case, he's saying, yes, I am an angel, thought the fellow, but neither age nor the baby have anything to do with my condition, like if the angel were speaking, because it's not part of the story. I don't even age. I am not a carrier of death. I was flying by. In my understanding, I have most likely been wakened and deteriorated by a tremendous lack of faith in God in this area, which could also explain why, no matter what I say, these believers cannot understand it. You see? So this is the way the student is thinking, okay? He thinks the way the protagonist was thinking. I don't know if I made myself clear. Yes? So this is like a psychological analysis. Okay, I don't know if you have any comment. Okay, now we are going to see new historicism. Remember what new historicism was about? It has to do with what? It has to do with time, place, historical circumstances. Remember? Okay, now we are going to see an example. Let's see. In this case, they had to read the Californian's Tale in, if I don't get wrong, in American literature. In this case, they had to make a table like this, a chart, where they had to include the analysis, the complete analysis of the story. One of the things that they had to analyze was the event or the time or situation or circumstances that reflected the period of time it was published. And in this case, they wrote, I want a volunteer to read it, please. One of the events.
Which one, the narrator or Henry?
Number one of the events, the second column of the chart.
Events, situation, or circumstances that reflect the period of time. One of the events that mark the period of time in the more or less mid-19th century is the notable gold rush in the United States, especially in California. And we can see it in the following statement. 35 years ago, I was out prospering on this. I'm sorry, I have to somebody can help me, please?
Yeah, another volunteer.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, maybe I can help. Okay. Should I start from the beginning then?
Yeah, sure.
The events that mark the period of time in the more or less mid-19th century is the notable gold rush in the United States, especially in California. And we can see it in the following statement. 35 years ago, I was out prospecting on this Stanislaus, I guess, trampling all day long with pick and pan and horn. Is it horn? Yeah, and horn, and washing a hatful of dirt here and there, always expecting to make a rich strike and never doing it. It also refers to the lives of the miners who at that time had migrated to Stanislaus in search of the American dream of getting rich through the gold they found there. Should I
Thank
continue?
you, Professor. No, because it's incomplete. Yes, this is just an excerpt. Okay, so do you see, guys, the events, situations, circumstances this student included based on new historicism, criticism? So you think it's right? It's complete. Okay, now we are going to see cultural criticism or cultural studies. I remember that Rafael has asked this question twice, one to Orlando and then to Glorita, but I didn't want to interrupt because they were the speakers those days. So in this case, I have one example, Rafael. In this activity, students had to research a folk tale because I was explaining the characteristics of folk tales, and they had to research a folk tale, any folk tale, and see if the characteristics were applied to this specific tale they had researched. So in this case, I'm giving you a Kitsune, I think is the pronunciation of this Japanese folktale. They had to say, because it was a group of 5, they had to say if the characteristics of folktales fit in this tale. For instance, superstition, beliefs, and culture. Okay, so let's see, a volunteer to read them just to have, or I don't know, Rafael is there to read it.
Sure. Which part?
Superstition, beliefs and culture.
So during the
To see
Edo
if that answers your question. Yes.
So during the Edo period, the kitsunes were seen as witch animals and thought of as goblins that not to be trusted. Should I go on?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, beliefs. Kitsune have become strongly associated with Inari and serves as its messengers. Sorry. So the kitsune must place needs, a leaf, or other items over its head as a prerequisite for transformation. Some common forms assumed by kitsune include beautiful women, young girls, men, and less often young boys.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. The kitsune is a yokai, a class of supernatural monsters and spirits in Japanese folklore. Japanese folklorists describe the yokai as personifications of supernatural or unaccountable phenomena. The yokai often possesses animal features other yokai resemble, inanimate objects, and look humanoid in appearance. Also have spiritual or supernatural abilities, with shape-shifting being the most common trait associated with them. At present, the Japanese still consider the kitsune as the messengers of God. They use the kitsune mask in festivals where the rice harvest at the end of the summer and in the new year. Yeah.
Okay,
That's as far as I can see.
Thank you, Rafael. Okay, so this is one of the things that I do to include cultural studies in one of the stories. So the questions will depend on the professor, what you want them to explore. So in this case, they had to see if the characteristics of this folktale fit in the story they researched, okay? Okay, now we are going to have an excerpt of Marxism theory. In this case, I think this is, let me see, Oliver. Oliver belongs to contemporary literature. In this case, students had to explain how social classes, because Marxism criticism has to do with social classes and economic situations. So in this case, they had to explain how social classes were governed by the forces of heredity, instinct, passion, or the environment of the story. So a volunteer to read it, please.
And from this one, number
In
one.
my opinion, in my opinion.
In my opinion, the story develops based on mid-low social class people. We can perceive this in the story when Marguerite's parents convince her to marry Oliver, who was not a wealthy man. But they consider that with Oliver, their daughter could have more than they could offer, since they did not have much to inherit her. Instinctively, Marguerite acknowledged that and found out that Oliver was a good man. Also, we can read the passion in the story when Oliver committed to satisfy his wife, who was tired of the monotony of her life, worked extra hours in order to save enough money to get a gerund and begin a new life.
Thank you, Belkis. So this is a good example of Marx's criticism. Do you have any comment or questions regarding?
Yes, this one is interesting, very interesting, because right now in Panama, we are having a little of that, the differences between high, middle, and low classes, and the struggle now for power and all of that. So this part is really very, very interesting. Thank you.
No, Orlando, now you gave me another idea. If we want to go more in depth, we can include another question, like how they relate that to our society. What is happening now? So it could be a good idea.
Yes, because just as Mr. Rafael Cardenas has spoken previous classes in Orlando, we need to relate cultural aspects.
Exactly. Yes. And least, I have another example of literary criticism, and in this case, I'm going to show you an excerpt of post-colonial criticism. In this case, I think this is Frederick's. It's belongs to American literature. In this case, they have to read Frederick Douglass' essay regarding his life as slave. So they had to sum up Frederick's escape from slavery, becoming a free man, and involvement in the anti-slavery movement, okay? So another volunteer to finish this, please.
Okay. Frederick Douglass had seen many slaves being abused, even if they were undeserving of punishment, especially with Mr. Gore. In chapter 4, the text describes him as one of those who could torture the slightest look, word, or gesture on the part of the slave into impudence and was treated accordingly. When Frederick Douglass was old enough to work, he realized that there was no real reason for him to put in work only for someone else to receive the benefits and get almost nothing in return. He risked his life in attempting to escape by making it seem like he had no intention of doing so by offering to work for other people. He did this until he finally had a chance to escape to New York. Even though he was a free man, he still felt insecure. Then he met Mr. Ruggles, who supported fugitive slaves. This was when Frederick Douglass had gained enough freedom to participate
in abolitionist movements and speeches.
Okay, so you see a good example of post-colonial criticism. I use this theory only in American literature because we have topics related to the colonization. Okay, now I'm going back because I want you to take pictures of the definition of each Leary theories, because now I'm going to be asking you what questions could you make when reading this text. Okay, I'm going to start here. Okay, take a picture of this moral criticism, biographical, cultural. Please take a picture. Are you ready?
Give us a second so we can,
Okay.
I guess.
Because I forgot to tell, yeah, I forgot to tell them that they had to take a picture of the slides.
All right. Let's
okay, next one.
Professor Gomez, could you please go back to the previous one?
Yeah.
Is that it? Okay.
Okay.
We're good. You can continue. Okay.
Done?
Done. So in essence, there are 4, correct?
No, 5, I guess. Yeah, this is the last one. Yeah, post-colonial is the last one.
Okay, I'm going to see if I can post them in the...
Are you done?
In the chat group, yes.
Okay. So now I have a text that I want you to explore to see I think is this one. So what Leary theories can be applied in works of literature? There are many lenses through which a reader can analyze works, but it depends on you, is how you see it. For instance, in my case, if I don't see Marxist criticism in a story, obviously I won't apply that criticism in that text. But if I see the construction, obviously I'm going to use it and I'm going to make questions to the construction, okay? So now I want you to be open-minded and be creative when reading this text. I want you to tell me what Leary theories you can see related to this text, and then we are going to make questions regarding this, okay? This is A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf, one of the writers that I analyze in contemporary literature. Okay, a volunteer to read it, please, for us.
I believe Professor Hernandez has been trying to, so maybe we can give her a chance to do that.
To take pictures or to read it?
I thought you wanted someone to read it.
Ah, yes, to read it. Okay,
right
no, I thought that you were referring to the pictures. Okay, go ahead. You said Adriana?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Adriana is not in? Oh, okay. Let me...
Okay, I can read it.
She's in. Adriana Hernandez, are you there?
I thought she had raised her hand several times, so that's why I called on her.
There she is.
Well, maybe she had a question.
There she is. There she is.
Okay. Sorry for putting her on the spot.
Okay.
Don't worry.
All right. Thanks, Adriana.
Okay, should I read the
title? Yeah, sure.
The title, A Rune of One's Own, 1929, by Virginia Woolf. Modernist literary figures of the 20th century. There is truth in what you say. I will not deny it, but at the same time, I remind you that there have been at least 2 colleges for women in existence, in England, since the year 1866. that after the year 1880, a married woman was allowed by law to possess her own property, and that in 1990, which is a whole 9 years ago, she was given a vote. Might also remind you that most of the professions have been open to you for close on 10 years now. When you reflect upon these immense privileges and the length of time during which they have been enjoyed, and the fact that there must be at this moment some 2,000 women capable of earning over 500 a year in one way or another, you will agree that the excuse of lack of opportunity, training, encouragement, leisure, and money no longer holds good. I told you in the course of this paper that Shakespeare had a sister, but do not look for her in Sir Sidney Lee's Life of the Poet.
Thank you, Adriana. Okay, I'm all ears. What literary theories could be applied on this text? Now that you have the pictures of the definitions of each one. I'm not asking you, Adriana, okay? I'm asking in general.
I think it could be cultural criticism.
Okay, and what questions do you think you can make?
Like in the behaviors of society towards what men or women can do. And it's also historical, because she has been talking about different times, but she ends up saying that, well, today what happens, no? So she's making a reflection on the privileges that men had, and women are like expecting to have a space, no? And this is a very nice reading in which the entire book is like a reflection.
Yeah, this is just an excerpt, yes.
On why would she need a room for her own, no? It's like, how can we write? How can we even be a scholar if we don't have all those privileges? And in this excerpt, I can see that it's a very good one, because I can see that she's talking about the culture, but she's also including historical.
Thank you, Lucy. Another volunteer? Another literary theory that you think could be applied in this text? Remember that you have the definition of each literary criticism.
Can I make a question?
Yes, sure.
Does the gender criticism apply here?
Yes. Gender?
Yes.
Yes. Feminism, yes. And this is the way I saw it. Let me tell you, since the very beginning, I read it.
Thank you.
So we agree. So we agree.
Okay.
So based on that, then I make the questions to my students. Yes. Yes. Okay, now let's see literary criticism. I don't know if you have comments or questions regarding yes, go ahead.
Yes, I think that they're not like maybe I should say it in a different way. Like, you can use more than one.
I don't suggest to use more than one.
Because a text, any text that you write will have different components. Like in this case, that she will be talking about history, she will be talking about how the society sees this topic. And as you say, it's also feminism. Criticism. So, and I also can talk about I don't know, the way she writes, and I also can add the biography. Who was Virginia Woolf to write this?
Okay, Lucy, I can answer this way. You can have two options. Number one, to provide a text and permit students to identify the theory, to write an essay, which is very general. You're going to have different point of view. And you have another option. That is the one that I decided to do. I'm going to give them the questions oriented to the literary criticism that I decided to include for that text. If I notice feminism in this text, the only questions that I'm going to include are addressed to feminism. All right? I only include one literary theory per text. This is what I do, right? Because I don't want to overwhelm them with too much information, okay? I don't know if that answered your question.
Totally, and I agree with you because then students are like, they don't know what to do. They don't know what's the right approach. So if you provide him, the students are, with the point of view that you would like to develop, that would be better for students' purpose. I mean, maybe my point of view is as a reader, or if I'm gonna make literary criticism by myself, but first for students and for education's sake, your approach is better.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Lucy. Okay, now we are going to see literary criticism and literary theory together. As I said at the beginning, they work hand in hand, okay? There is a close relationship between literary criticism and literary theory. So when we talk about literary criticism, we are talking or referring to literary theory too. Literary criticism draws greatly from literary theories, as you have seen in the examples provided. Both take different bases to interpret a work, in this case, different critical theories. Okay, so this is just to have an overview of both terms. And to recap, remember that literary criticism is like the overall term for studies and activities that are concerned with interpretation, evaluation, classification, and literary theory itself is the set of rules. It denotes something that the critic has to do regarding the text. Okay, strategies. Emphasize reproductive reasoning. Reasoning is going to be tomorrow when I explain the skills for literary critical thinking skills. Number two, incorporate students' questions to analyze a literary work. Cultivate relationships in class. Some of the web pages that I usually use are as follows: Booksy, Kialo Education, reading school of blog spots to permit them to post reviews or comments regarding a text or a poem. I don't know if I can show you. Let me stop sharing because I have a couple of windows open. Let me see. Just let me know if you can visualize the web page. Can you visualize it, the Little Red Riding Hood?
Yes, we can.
Okay. If I scroll it down, I'm gonna see the different reviews that other people have posted. You see? I have invited my students to post their comments to apply reader response criticism. So the only thing you have to do is to go to Google and write the title of the story you are going to analyze. And you're gonna write, like, for example, in this case is Little Riding Hood, you write Little Riding Hood comments or Little Red Riding Hood reviews. And Google is gonna show you different web pages where you can post reviews, and this is what you are going to evaluate, all right? In the case of, let me stop sharing and go to Kialo Edu. Give me a second.
Professor Gomez, just a quick question. So these websites are for students to post their comments regarding a particular reading or comments about, I don't know, comments that have already been made?
If I am going to analyze Little Riding Hood, I give them, well, first I'm gonna check the websites that I'm going to use and the ones that they can post the reviews. Right after I have the web page, I'm gonna share it, and they do it in class, and they are going to show me the reviews on their cell phones. Okay, so this is the way I do it. But first, I have to go to Google to see what web pages have the blog spot to post the reviews, because sometimes you won't find it. For instance, once I remember that I wanted to see the reviews for the Oliver Bickel, that is a tale that they read in contemporary, and I didn't find anything, so I couldn't apply that literary criticism in that particular reading. But I do it not in every class, but at least once in a semester, okay? Because it takes time. We only have 3 hours per week and we don't have time. So just if I want to apply reader response criticism, I do it, okay? But only once in a semester. Okay, in this case, I don't know if you can see Kialo Education. I don't know if you can visualize it. Kialo?
Yes.
Can you? Okay, in this case, they have to sign up to become member of this platform, and they are going to show you several tools. And one of the tools that I have used is, I don't know the name, but I think it's, let me see. They have the opportunity to debate, because sometimes they don't dare to debate orally. So I give them the opportunity to do it in this platform, because they are going to write it. They are going to write their opinions. So I think that is, but I don't remember, because I used it last year, but I don't remember the name of the tool that Kialo contains. I'm gonna see somewhere the word debate, and then you're gonna split it out, and you're gonna see the groups debating to a specific topic. Okay, let me continue. Yes, let me stop sharing for a while. Okay, can you visualize it? I mean, how do professors prepare an assignment oriented to literary criticism? Can you read that?
Yes.
Okay, so how do professors prepare an assignment oriented to literary criticism? Number one, you select a reading. Number two, you think of possible topics related to literary theories. In the case of psychological theory, for example, if you want to analyze a character's behavior, or if you want to select, for instance, neo-historicism, because you think that the reading includes different dates and historical events, you think that you can use that specific literary theory. After having this possible topics, you see, you select the literary theory, and then you're going to scrutinize. If you don't have enough questions to make, I highly recommend you to scrutinize on the web theories related to the reading selected. For instance, if your target reading is the necklace, what you have to do is to go to Google and write the necklace from the Marxist theory perspective, or the necklace through the lens of Marxism, okay? Or if you think that this story maybe includes feminism, then you write the necklace through the lens of feminism to see what Google can show you, okay? In this case, I thought that Marxism was present in this particular reading, and I found this. Let me show you. Okay, I'm gonna share the webpage. No, this is not the. Am I sharing?
Yes, you are.
Okay,
Well, not now.
let me go back. Let me go back because this is not the web page that I wanted to show. Give me a few seconds. I don't know if I click here. It takes me to.
I think it can.
Can you visualize it like the title is? I'm gonna read what I have in front. The necklace from the Marxist theory perspective. Can you read that?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Just the
Okay,
link.
so just the link.
Are you trying to open the link?
Maybe with
Yeah,
control and
okay.
then.
Yes, I noticed. Yes, let me copy the link. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to suggest, to put it in the chat box. Maybe.
Yeah, also. Okay. Give me a second.
I think you can access from there also with control and then left click.
Yeah, let me try. Just give me a couple of seconds. Let me stop sharing and then let me go to. Here it is. Okay, now let me share the screen. Here it is. It takes time, but successfully we are here. Okay, and read it. The necklace from the Marxist theory perspective. Yes, you can read it?
Mm-hmm.
This is an essay. This is an essay, but right after you read it, you can have like ideas to make questions. Okay, that's what I meant. Sometimes we don't have the questions for the specific Leary theory. So at the beginning, it's gonna be kind of hard to make the questions. But later, when you go to Google and you see other sources, maybe you can have other questions in mind to give your students, okay? So here you see the introduction, then you see the social injustice, because remember the literary theory that is explained is based on social classes. So you have social injustice, we have materialism, we have class conflict, and then the conclusion, okay? So this is just to have an idea. Do you have any question? All right, let me stop sharing this for a second and let me go back to the slide. Okay. Can you visualize it? Okay. Yeah. So in number 4, you scrutinize on the way theories related to the reading selected to have more ideas to make the questions. And then step 5 is to make the questions related to the literary theory and make students focus on finding evidence that supports their arguments. We are going to deepen on arguments tomorrow, okay, in critical thinking. So that's why I won't be expanding on this. Okay, now as I informed you at the beginning, the word interpretation was in italics and bold because I was going to explain it later. So the definition of interpretation is a process of making meaning from a text and the process of examining the details in the text in order to make sense. It is a social act because students bring to the text their past and come away with a richer understanding and increased self-awareness. It's a mental representation of the meaning or significance of something, okay? So that's why you're gonna have different interpretation of the text. And if you notice, when you were reading Virginia's excerpt, you notice that Lucy had one interpretation of the text and then Orlando came out with another interpretation, okay? That's because each person has a different background and this is the way we see the text or the poem, all right? Okay, let's see. Literary studies and interpreting literary text. We have here 2 scenarios. We have high school and we have college level literary courses. In high school, teachers, excuse me? Okay, in high school, basic literary studies often focus on understanding text, identifying and defining literary terms, and knowing what happened in the story. However, in college level literary courses, students should focus on interpreting the meaning and significance of what happened in the text and how the text represents the events that took place in the story. So we have to ask ourselves if we are taking into consideration both scenarios or if we only focusing on one scenario, because if we focus only on interpretation, we are leaving out the analysis of literary elements, which are very important to include in literature. Or if only we are including interpretation, or if only we are including understanding the reading. So we have ourselves, we're including both scenarios in our classes. I don't know if you want to make comments or you have a question. No? Okay, now I have examples that I want you to tell what literary theory you think I applied. Okay, let's start with this. How do you interpret suffering has been stronger than all other teaching and has taught me to understand what your heart used to be? I have been bent and broken, but I hope into a better shape. This is a quote taken from Charles Dickens' works. So in this case, students had to apply their answers to their reality by explaining one situation. So what literary theory you think I applied in this specific question? What literary theory I applied? Now that you have the definition of each literary theory on hand, I guess.
Psychological.
Psychological. Why do you think I apply psychological? In what way?
Because in the quote, we have aspects related to the feelings of the person.
Okay, maybe I used it. Well, remember that in psychological criticism, we have the audience, the text, the character, and the author. So you think it's addressed to the text or the audience, I guess, because the audience is the theory that is used to explain the appeal of the word for those who read it. Okay, so that's right, Glorita. Very good. Another comment, another idea.
Hello, Lourdes. I have a question. All of these theories can be used in all the levels
Courses.
of
Yes.
Yes, and all the courses that we have.
In all the courses.
For example, at the beginning level, which is children's literature, can we use this kind of theories without a background? Well, remember that we don't have introduction to literature, and then in these courses, and then we have to go back to these literary elements and something else to make the students to know and to have a background before trying to analyze. So are these theories well, our students in this level can be able to use these theories, or can we have an extra explanation on them?
Okay, remember the first slide from the examples that I showed that included the student's review of a poem? Well, in that case, I applied reader response criticism.
Right. I agree.
Remember? And
Right,
poetry
like
is taught in children's literature. Another that we usually use, because we were taught to do it that way, is formalism, new criticism. Remember that the only thing that we focus on is the analysis of the literary devices. Remember?
Okay, yes.
In children's literature, I also include cultural aspects of the folk tales, and I use cultural studies, and so on. But as I said before, I only use one theory per...
Yes, but my specific question is, if we have to explain these theories before, or they make the criticism unconsciously when we ask them to analyze some story, short story, or fairy tale, for example. Do we have to them, or they make them that criticism unconsciously?
Nisla, imagine if I start one class by explaining the definition of all the literary theories.
We
they are going
not
to be
going to have
frustrated
enough
since the very beginning.
Never.
Like, what?
For that
Because
reason, I asked you that. Yes, exactly.
No, I don't explain the definition. I just give them the questions based on the literary theory that I had in mind at the moment I was reading the text.
Okay.
So I have never given them the definition of the literary theories.
Okay.
Never, ever. I don't want them to get frustrated.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know if in linguistics, you guys that belong to linguistics, if you explain theories, because I explained these theories because they are oriented not only to literature, but also to linguistics and other fields. But I don't know if you have seen them before, those that belong to linguistics. Have you seen these literary theories before in linguistics? Because they can be applied in linguistics as well as in
they can be applied
education.
Actually, it's not the focus.
It's not okay, it's not the purpose. Okay. But have you applied it? I mean, have you applied a literary, well, let's call it the theory
At
of
some
criticism.
point, for example, in interpretation of a text, in a case of pragmatics, it can be applicable. And then we can then complement with some literary, but not, as I'm telling you, it's not the main focus because we are not literature. That's the point.
Okay, but remember that we can apply them in other fields, okay? Because once you have a text, you can orient the questions to that specific theory. Now that you said practicism, I guess, because I haven't used it, practicism. Pragmatics, because that's another theory. I forgot to tell you that this is just a short list of literary theories, but the list is quite long. We have eco-criticism, we have deconstructive criticism, we have practical criticism, we have archetypal criticism, and you name it, you name it. But this is just a short list of literary theories. Okay, another comment or question? I don't know if that answered your question, Nisla.
¿Estás solito aquí? ¿O tú subes y bajas? ¿Ah? ¿Tu bata? Ah, pues que yo vengo ahora. Bueno.
Nisla, I don't know if that answered your question. Nisla, are you there? Okay, never mind. Okay, let's see this interpretation. A volunteer to read it, please. A volunteer?
Interpretation.
Just to see if you're there, because I don't see you.
Interpretation. This poem is about a shark attack on a boat, which eventually sinks the boat. Number 2, the author portrays what he saw. Number 3, the author begins the poem. Number 4, the subject of this poem is the shark. Number 5, the theme of this poem is damage done by the shark. And 6, the title of this poem depicts the distance between the author and safety away from the shark.
Thank you, Glorita.
You're welcome.
Listen, not because I'm including only interpretation, I'm omitting literary theory. If I want them to interpret a poem, also I'm including theories. In this case, what specific literary theory do you think I applied? Because interpretation is implied in the theory. What theory, now that you have the definition of the theories, what theory do you think I applied in this interpretation? You have to think deeper. Is the question hard? Are you there?
Probably, yeah, because it is a different genre. Well, I would think that the structure, let's check structuralism, because probably we will look at the structure of the poem and then analyze from the perspective of each. I mean, here we have the subject, the author, the theme, and then the title. So that, I think, that could be the analysis to be made.
Good, Bilkis. Very good. Very good. As I said, you don't have to tell them that they are going to analyze structuralism criticism, because that term is like sort of overwhelming. Okay, you don't have to mention structuralism anywhere. Okay, only you say interpret, infer, and that's it. Okay. Okay, let's see this example. In this case, they had to explain how this poem reflects social concerns or their ideal of moderation or decorum or urbanity by rewriting the verses and explaining them. Besides, see how this poem can reflect Henry Fielding's righteous experiences. What literary theory I applied? I see several, but I don't know if you see it. This is fourth year, all right? Fourth year. And if you notice, I didn't include the word theory anywhere because it's implied in the question. What theories, because I used several, I used?
I would think that it would be, yeah, cultural, because here we're studying like the societal conventions and the norms by the time, and some ideals of morals and so on. So probably in that context, cultural, moral criticism too. Yeah, I I think.
Okay, very good too.
And I
Okay.
see also biographical.
Biographical, yes, because the student is relating the poem to the author's life. Good, Lucy, very good. Another one that starts with D.
But
Just to
maybe
help
it
you
has
out.
something to do with historical, something like that, because it talks about Augustans and
Yes,
ages.
yes, exactly. As Belkis said, yes. And another with that starts with I told you, the construction. When you take line by line, stanza by stanza, and you deconstruct it, you're using the construction. You see? When the student says, in the first lines of the poem, we find ta-ra, 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 ta, that student is deconstructing. You see? Okay, let me see. Okay, I have another, but I want to skip that because I want to give you other examples of activities that I have used through the lens of these literary devices. For instance, in this case, this is Shakespeare's and other British authors. In this case, they had to put into practice everything they learned throughout the semester, and they had to create like a stand to include all the elements, the outstanding information regarding the British authors, etc., etc. If you notice, they are including all the topics, 12th night, ballads, sonnets, you see? So what literary theory you think I applied in this specific activity? That is not written, but you see that they managed to have it on time. Everything together. The whole semester is there. What literary theory I applied? Are you there? Are you reading the definition of the literary theories, I guess?
Yes, we are reading.
At least to see your faces because I don't see you. Yes. I'm all
I was gonna
ears.
say formalist, but I'm not sure. Because you
Okay,
talk
let's see
about
it in
applying
detail.
everything.
Why do you think formalism? Because remember, formalism only includes the literary devices. Remember? That actually in Shakespeare and other British authors, we include metric, we include sonnets. So if they included in this, then obviously we are applying formalism or new criticism literary theory. All right. Okay.
Right. I would think that it would be new criticism because we are here using concrete, very concrete, a form of interpretation for these and not exclusively thinking and thoughts and language itself, but turning it into a more concrete interpretation.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Glorita and Belkis. Okay. Now this space is to make comments, final questions, please, to wrap up.
Well, Lourdes, I just wanted to congratulate you because wow, it's been very thought-provoking and complete. No, that you don't have to be sorry about it. It's good and complete. And wow, I think that we have to like review a lot the material so that we can apply the concepts in class as well. So thank you very much.
Very deep, I guess.
Absolutely.
Deep or interesting. Yeah, interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I would say, Lourdes, that it is very interesting. And also I think that we all have learned a lot about the theories, because sometimes we read stories, we read books, and we really don't know what kind of criticism we are following. Just criticize. We do not follow the pattern. But now, believe me that from now on, I will be sure to pay attention to what kind of criticism or theory we are using in that analysis. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, because maybe you have used it, you are using it, but you don't know how to maybe master it.
Exactly.
And you can see other examples on the web, you see, to give you more ideas to create your own questions. Yes, exactly. Okay, another comment or question, please, before we leave.
Well, I can tell you my feelings. I felt as if I had boarded a plane and then I was taken through a whole trip of literary criticism. And then I am still landing. I don't know where I'm going to land, but I'm still landing. I mean, has been so much. Wow. There's so much and so many things that, I mean, we never take into account. But, well, we have to take them into account now. Wow. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Well, and I would say that you put our knowledge or understanding to the task. That was quite challenging. But yeah, then this has been a learning experience. You know, things that had never been addressed before, we were able to grasp from your presentations, which was very thorough. So congratulations.
Okay, thank you very much. And I encourage.
Yeah, it can also be compared to a trip where you go to different places. And well, in this place.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And like, wow.
Yeah, absolutely. And I encourage you to research more about it. And I encourage you to maybe write essays or to make your students write essays regarding a criticism. But remember, as I said, option A, to give them the text to know what they are going to write about. I think that is deeper, because sometimes if you show them all the theories, I think that is going to be like overwhelming. So that's why I don't choose option A. I always use option B. I give them the questions related to the criticism that I consider is the one that is applied on that text, okay? So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, you learned, and now put into practice and to master it. We have to master it.
Actually, I wanted to ask you one last question. from your experience, because I noticed that the work that was done with students was pretty much with in groups. Okay, and I was wondering if you believe or you've tried it out, you know, on an individual basis, and if so, which one proved to be a little bit more effective?
Yeah, at the beginning, I start doing this in groups, especially when they are in children's literature and short stories. Then in American Contemporary and Shakespeare, they have to answer the questions alone. They have to demonstrate that they really master the critical thinking, because it also includes critical thinking, because you have to analyze it deeper, okay? But I do it gradually, step by step, okay? First in group, and then only one criticism, and then I add another one, and then they have to do it alone, okay? So that's why I think that they hate me, because you know what? When they have a test, for example, in contemporary, they have a test, they are really nervous because they look forward to knowing the questions, what questions Professor Luri is gonna include now, because I change the questions every year. So if they think that they are going to find the same questions that I included the previous course, they are totally wrong. Because I change it. So it challenges me to be more creative and to be also independent when making the questions, okay? So this is something that I do, and I think they hate me. But they learn, because at the end of the semester, they say, I learned, I learned.
Exactly, that's part of the learning
I
process.
learned that that's my main objective, of course.
I don't think they hate you at all. Not at all.
Just love you in a very special way.
Okay, let's say that. Okay, so thank you very much for joining us this session, and I hope you see again tomorrow in our second session.
Okay, well, thanks again. In addition to Professor Gomez. Yeah, thanks for joining us. And I hope that you have enjoyed pretty much the information that was shared with you. And two things that I wanted to point out before we end the session. One is, remember to go into Classroom, Google Classroom, and keep up with the assignments. It's very, very important for you to get your certificate at the end of the seminar. And I guess that's pretty much it. I hope you have a pleasant afternoon, and we'll see you tomorrow for more information, more exchange of ideas tomorrow. I'll see you then. Have a good one. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
The presenters.
In a moment, I'm going to upload the task related to literary theories, okay? It won't be easy.
Me too.
It won't be easy.
Thank you very much, Lourdes, Elsie, Maribel, Rorita. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing very much.
Bye, professors.
Okay, bye-bye. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Have a nice day. Remember to do your assignments. Bye-bye.